95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
It's the NFL Draft first round.
Wait till you see my mock draft that drops. Let's just say that.
That's called a tease.
Yeah.
Hey, Reggie Bush got his Heisman back.
Oh, who cares?
Mike Danger.
We listeners are truly listening to a powerhouse sports show. Next, I'm going to do 20 minutes of fart jokes.
Gene Battaglia.
Listen, we can interview a Hall of Fame level agent. We can talk to a head coach. We can talk to an info guy. And Mike Danger can tell a fart joke and I can gossip.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to do all of that.
My high school girlfriend came from Rochester, so I've always had a warm spot for it.
We're very provincial in this town.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Lindy.
Amerks Crunch, Friday at 7.
Playoffs?
Certainly expect it to be a sellout both games this weekend. Knowing now from the last 2 years, the electricity and what this place does at playoff time is pretty special, and I'm excited for it.
Can we get a go Amerks like go Bills?
I would like it to be safe as death. What do you mean? Don't look behind you.
The Amerks coming.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Is Rochester the Kevin Bacon of American cities? I think it is.
It is.
I think it is.
It is.
Welcome on in, the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Hey, we're glad you're with us today. One day before the NFL Draft, 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, and our stream now on our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester, on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester, and of course, on your smart device. When you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, I'm Mike Danger. That's Gene Battaglia.
Our last day in studio here this week.
That's right. That's right. I feel like I'm as immersed in the NFL Draft now as I've ever been in my entire life. I've got scenarios rolling through my brain. I'm wearing my Bears hat today because I know who they're taking at 1, and they unveiled plans, hot renderings for a new stadium in Chicago. Gino got all excited about that. And tomorrow it all goes down. It all starts tomorrow night, round 1 of the NFL Draft.
Not only the Buffalo Bills, what do they do, but you have quarterbacks that are going to make it right at the top. Potentially, we could have 1, 2, 3. If you believe some of the experts, we could have 5 go in the top 15. So you don't typically get this in a draft. So people love their quarterbacks. People love offense. And this should be a lot of fun here tomorrow night.
It will be a lot of fun. We're going to get the day started tomorrow with our little pre-draft show, as we've grown to do year in and year out, from our friends at Three Heads Brewing, our gracious hosts who will host us once again tomorrow afternoon from 3 until 6. We'll be there at Three Heads Brewing, Rochester's largest patio, now open for the season. We get one of those Melon Head watermelon sours and the other fine beers that they have on tap, plus delicious wood-fired pizza from Freddy's. We're there starting at 3 until 6. And, we'll hang out a little bit afterwards as well. That's Three Heads tomorrow for day 1. And then we react to day 1 of the NFL Draft Friday afternoon in advance of day 2 of the NFL Draft. We'll be at the Tap Room at Bill Gray's Chili Avenue location from 3 until 6 as well.
Yeah, going back to the west side and just kind of taking in the baseball and everything it's on. But Friday is always fun. It's actually one of the best days in sports talk, and one of the best days, I say, just on our show, because so many angles, so many things to cover. It's like when you were younger and you hosted a party and you knew everybody had a great time, but you didn't hear really all the stories, and you kind of want to tell about the stories from the night that the draft before. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We will have that for you on Friday. So it's great that we're going to be out Thursday and Friday meeting everybody.
Now, joining us today, our final show before we get to our pre-draft shows on Thursday and Friday, he is the conductor of the wide receiver train for the Buffalo Bills. He is Jeremy White, host of the Jeremy White Show on WGR, stopping by at 425.
I'm not preparing for a debate with Jeremy because I think it's very possible the Bills could take a receiver 28, trade up for a wide receiver. But I would also say there's an equal chance that does not happen in this draft, and I just want to put the brakes on the wide receiver train. I know that's not popular, but when you look at positional value, is it really in the direction of wide receiver? Because if you're building a team for just say, hey, can we get over the hump finally in 2024? Then sure, go up and trade for future ones for Roman dudes and say, dude, knock yourself out. But if you're building for the long haul, and I do believe the window's open for multiple years here with Josh Allen at the controls, then you should look at this differently. So I'm going to see if Jeremy's open to other ideas here in the draft.
I can spoil it for you right now.
No.
He's not. But we'll get into it. He'll be joining us at 4:25.
You know what a good sports argument does? Get somebody to change their mind. And he's going to go on his show tomorrow. He's like, those guys in Rochester are very smart.
He's not going to do that.
Yeah,
no, I guarantee you he won't do that. Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report, going to stop by, talk some Sabres here in about 20 minutes or so. And it feels like the thing that I've seen the most in the course of the last 24 hours since the Sabres introduced Lindy Ruff is the lack of any sort of in-depth coaching search by Kevin Adams. That feels like the prevailing sentiment that I've seen here over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and I want to get Joe's opinion on Seth Apper. Today, you had the St. Jose Sharks fire their coach, Quinn, gone. Well, they were terrible, not a surprise. So you have teams that need development. San Jose, Ottawa, perpetually. Detroit still in that boat. They haven't gotten over the hump in terms of making the postseason. These are all guys with interim coaches right now, and in the case of San Jose, Utah needs a coach. The question is going to be, will Seth Apper get opportunities? Because the dynamic now in the organization, Danger, we've all worked in a place where you get passed over. And then you start to think, all right, well then, what's my future here? When Seth is on Tuesdays, I'm not going to phrase it like that, but this is all what we're thinking, right? That, hey, this has happened before in this organization's past. Is it going to happen again? Just one of the hockey conversations. Oh, by the way, the hockey's been fantastic. More coming up tonight.
Yeah, Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report, joining us here a little under 20 minutes from now. You're welcome to join us. Pull up a stool. 585-866-4FAN is our phone number. 866-4326. Also on Elon's Twitter, X, at the Fan Rochester. Feel free to engage with us there throughout the course of the afternoon. We appreciate that as always. The table is set.
Yeah, as I don't know if we're getting any real new info. You have a report from Walter Football, whatever that is, some draftnik saying the Bills are interested in this player. I'm not even passing along because I don't even know if it's true. You have this other report from the Boston Herald that the Patriots have moved down, but they haven't received an offer that they take seriously. You have this report that I'm learning from Browning Tasker that, wow, the Giants could be interested in Michael Penix. None of this is true, right? Can we just say you're putting stuff out there? In the case of the Giants, that's a clear one, right? Michael Penix at 6, that would be a reach. No, they're just putting that out there. And guess some nervous and jerky teams, these quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3. Why not get out of there?
The season of lying, Gino. Yeah. It is the season of lying. A couple of things that did happen today in the NFL in advance of the start of the draft tomorrow, and specifically in Detroit. They've paid a couple of their players to now be the highest paid at their positions. When you look at what they did with Amon-Ra St. Brown, extending on a 4-year extension worth more than $120 million, $77 million guaranteed, making him right now the highest paid receiver in the NFL. We all know that that's going to change when Justin Jefferson resets the market. Jamar Chase, speaking of receivers, Cincinnati did pick up his 5th-year extension, his 5th-year option on his rookie deal, which is a no-brainer. He's under contract through 2025, and now they'll be able to, at some point, once Jefferson resets the market, Chase will then again reset the market. And then back to Detroit, talking about players now that they are the highest paid at their position. Penei Sewell has agreed to terms on a 4-year extension. $112 million, the new highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL.
Doesn't that feel, Detroit, like how Buffalo did, say, circa 2020, 2021, where you knew, all right, we have our core. And Danger, we asked Brandon Bean this question. It was about paying guys. He's like, well, people are going to pay attention to who we pay on our team. And one by one, they took care of their own. Sure, like Tremaine Edmonds, that's too rich. And you have other kind of guys that you let go, but pretty much the core pieces. And I kind of look at Detroit, but man, if you're a Lions fan, you're going to have a few fun years. I hope you get over the hump. Here in West New York, we're still kind of waiting. It's still available to us, but that's what I kind of see is that Detroit is kind of where Buffalo was 3 years ago.
Yeah, you can't argue with either of those two signings, those extensions. I mean, they've both been fantastic players for that organization. St. Brown is one of the most electric wide receivers in the league, and Sewell is going to be a legacy lineman on that team for as long as they'll have him. I mean, he's fantastic. So the Lions making a couple of moves and paying a couple of their own guys that they drafted, guys that have been part of their organization now. And you're right, it feels like they've turned a bit of a corner there with some of these signings. Rashad Bateman also extending in Baltimore as well. He's now there through 2026. So just a couple of the signings that have happened here before we get to the NFL draft. And when you talk about the amount of money being thrown around at wide receiver, or that's about to be thrown around at wide receiver, I think that's another question for Jeremy White is, working that rookie first round contract to your advantage and having cost control through the first 5 years of their career if you have a wide receiver as a higher positional value than, say, defensive tackle or edge rusher. Does that factor into the decision of Brandon Beane, or does it even matter? Is it just about getting the guy that's going to be the stud that you want on your team for the foreseeable future and not whiffing on that pick? We can't wait for that conversation with Jeremy White coming up here later on this afternoon.
Yeah, so it's all coming about, and I think it's a good time to kind of revisit, like, if we're going to plant our flag. It's a year danger where I know you like to say, which guy do you want the Bills to take, and your draft does not feel complete. But the one thing I've kind of learned over the years is we don't know crap.
No.
We don't. Like, I got a call today, talking with a friend, like, hey, remember what you said on the air? No, tell me. You said the Bills picked the wrong Josh. I did. Because that was my opinion,
Yeah.
and I was led to believe. So really, whatever happens tomorrow night, you have to suspend whatever your judgment is for a few years on that. Now, that being said, Danger, I don't know, when you lay out all these wide receivers, and some will be great, some may even be Hall of Famers, some will wash out. Who's to say? I don't know. So you could say A.D. Mitchell, pluses and pros, and Thomas from he's got an injury concern with the shoulder. All these things, I'm just going to reserve judgment.
Can we open it up to our regulars? And I'd love to hear from you this afternoon at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. And it doesn't matter if you're a Bills fan or what team you're a fan of. If you're just a fan of football and you're curious about who goes where in tomorrow night's draft, who's your guy? Do you have a guy in this draft? Who's your guy? Do you have somebody that you've been watching through his college career, or that you just started watching film on or seeing pop up on your feed, a wide receiver, a quarterback, somebody that you think when they get to the NFL, they're going to hit? Who's your guy? I'd love to hear it at 866-4326. And Gino, I've been pretty steadfast in saying that I wouldn't call him my guy. I would just say for the Buffalo Bills, the guy that you don't want to leave Detroit without is Ladd McConkey. And the reason why I say that is if you can't get a Rome Odunze by trading up, or you can't get a Thomas because he's gone by the time you're picking at 28, that's the guy that I think can do. He might not be everything that those guys are, but if you get him, he could develop and become that. He has the smarts of working in a pro-style offense, having played in Georgia with Todd Monken as his offensive coordinator as a junior. He has the ability to separate through his route running. You know that there will be a connection between a guy like Ladd McConkey and Josh Allen. I feel like that's a marriage waiting to happen. That's the guy that, for me, the Bills can't leave Detroit without.
So we're talking dream scenario, right?
I'm just saying that's the guy they can't leave without. Dream scenario? If I'm the Bills?
Give me the dream
My
scenario.
dream scenario is Rome Odunze.
Okay.
That's the guy I think for the Bills. That's my guy. That's the guy I would say I would love to see them go up and get that guy.
Okay, here's my dream scenario, because I don't want to give up a first-round draft pick next year. In fact, I don't want to give up any twos. I want to stay right where I am. There's something to be said for that. Now, Again, it's a dream scenario because Brandon Beane doesn't do that. But my dream scenario, Danger, is this. And this is the unpopular opinion, okay? But to have a ball-hawking safety is such an advantage. Yes, it's an offensive league, but you can counter that. And I look at good teams like the Ravens with Kyle Hamilton, and no, it's a different skill set. But if you got, somehow, Cooper DeJean falls to 28, you run with that pick up to the podium, you take the safety, and then at 60, because let's be honest, he's not... A lot of mocks don't have him going in the first round. You get McConkey in the second round.
I've seen mocks that do have him going in the first round.
So that is
just crazy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If you got 2 starters, so that the baseline minimum here, okay, 2 starters. That doesn't happen by trading up for a Dunze, because I would assume you'd have to kick in this year's number 2. Or maybe it's you're going to forfeit all of next year's top picks. You're not going up that far to get a Dunze. So that's why I'm looking at this from just a shopping standpoint. Give me 2 guys that can compete to be starters this year.
Well, I would love to hear from some of our regulars. If you have a take at 866-4326, feel free to join us throughout the course of the afternoon. Who's your guy? That's the question. Who's your guy? Like, Roman Dunze is my guy just because when you watch that guy and you watch him play, and man, I see it. I see that guy in this offense, and it feels seamless. It feels like you'll not only have a replacement for what you had with Diggs, but more than what you had with Diggs eventually.
Wow.
And that's why my eyes get wide and my heart flutters a little bit when I think of Roma Dunze. Now, assuming that he isn't there until, he isn't there beyond the middle of the first round. Now, if you're the Bills and you're kind of waiting, if it is McConkey, then that's the guy I think you do sit and wait for. But I have seen mocks that have teams taking McConkey before 28. And again, nobody knows anything. Who knows how the draft board falls? Who knows how many quarterbacks are taken? Who knows how wide receivers are actually valued by these teams? And we know how deep the class is. And there might be some teams that just say, you know what? We don't put a value on wide receiver the way other teams do. We would rather have an offensive lineman that we can have for years to come.
That's a great point, because if they don't take a wide receiver in the first round this year, true or false? They'll never take a wide receiver in the first round.
The Bills?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. That there's been previous years where like, oh, they're going to take one, and then they passed and they passed and they passed. And I brought this up to Mike Catalana. He disagreed with me on the notion that it's a quarterback who develops the wide receiver. I think they can kind of work in tandem, Danger. I really do. Now, in the case of Diggs, like Diggs was established, and you could say Diggs kind of helped Allen along.
I think so.
Absolutely. Well, I think now it's the pendulum's the other way. Whoever you bring in, that wide receiver is going to be lucky to come here as opposed to a team, let's say Pittsburgh, okay, or whoever it may be, a quarterback that's like, I don't know. Yeah, no, the wide receiver that comes here has a better chance of developing.
Speaking of Pittsburgh, becoming pretty clear that they're not going to extend the 5th-year option on Justin Fields' rookie contract. You've essentially got 3 key players on offense on 1-year deals: Najee Harris, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. I mean, talk about going out there and trying to prove it. And if you're Justin Fields, man, you've got to hope something happens that gets you on the field, because you'll go into free agency after spending a year backing up Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. Not a great look for a former first-round pick in Justin Fields.
Well, if it's clear, because this is April, right? And you get to camp, and then you have soft tissue injuries and blah, blah, blah. If Fields is doing the work and all things are equal, they're still going with Russell Wilson. But Fields has to have a great camp to just make him say, all right, maybe there's more to this.
Yeah, you see the way Tomlin longingly looks at Russell Wilson, and you see Wilson. You've seen this in your feed the last couple of days. Like, Wilson's doing good things in the community. He's visiting the Pittsburgh Children's Hospitals, and he's ingratiating himself with a fan base, and it's going to be a hard thing for them to actually sit Russ down, because of his performance. It would have to be exceptionally bad. We've seen bad Russell Wilson, so maybe that could still happen. But I worry for Justin Fields that when he does hit free agency after this upcoming season, it's going to be more along the lines of, hey, who do you want to back up for the rest of your career? Which, I mean, given how electric that guy has shown to be, he may not be a future starting quarterback, but man, he's a playmaker of some sort. And well, it'll be interesting to see.
It's a little surprising because other than the cap hit, like those are the positions you want. You want the competition. So it's a risk that Pittsburgh's taking, and they could have a very clean cap next year if they move on from all three.
Who's your guy? Chris, one of our regulars from South Central Kentucky, listening on the free-to-download Odyssey app. At the Fan Rochester, there's a guy I've been banging the drum for a long time, and he fills a need. I think the Bills could probably get him in either the 4th or 5th round. Drake Stoops, slot wide receiver at Oklahoma. Cole Beasley 2.0. In 5 years, I think I saw him drop 4 passes total.
I'll take your word for it, Drake Stoops. And by the way, he is the son of Bob Stoops. So,
how much do you like the football DNA?
Oh my goodness, I know.
Bloodlines matter.
Well, I know Sean McDermott loves to talk some football. Yeah.
Bloodlines matter. Yeah. Let's get to Joe Yerdon, noted hockey. Bleacher Report. We'll talk some Sabres. We'll talk some Lindy Ruff. We'll talk some Rochester Americans. All coming up next with Joe Yerdon. Plus more of your calls at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Back in the Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia. It was about 24 hours ago that we were getting reintroduced to new Sabres head coach, old Sabres head coach, Lindy Ruff. After the dismissal of Don Granato at the end of the season, we welcome in, from Bleacher Report and Noted Hockey, our buddy Joe Yurden in the Sports Bar. Joe, it feels like since yesterday and the introduction of Lindy Ruff, or the reintroduction of Lindy Ruff, it feels like what I'm seeing more of than anything is a storyline or a beat of less than a thorough search for the head coaching position after the release of Don Granato. What do we know about Kevin Adams' search for Granato's replacement?
Well, it's funny because the question I asked of Adams yesterday at the press conference was, how many people did you talk to? And obviously because it was such a quick turnaround. I mean, we're talking 6 days from firing Don to hiring Lindy. How quick did it take him to realize that, no matter who he talked to, Lindy was his guy. And, he made sure to say that, I'm not going to mention any names, which, that's fine. But he didn't give an exact number either. He did say it was double figures, which that's casting a wide net if you choose to believe him. But I know there was some doubt cast upon that. I think Elliot Friedman had mentioned something that he didn't think the search was all that extensive. I don't know if I'm radioing him or not. I think that was said on TV last night. But all we can do is kind of take everybody at their word for this. But certainly by the amount of time that it took from between firing Don and hiring Lindy, that it's hard to believe that you could talk to a lot of people in that time. But certainly if you're racking up the hours, you could. But given the parameters that Kevin had put in place when he said, when he described what he was looking for out of a coach, I mean, I think all of us walked away from that thinking like, oh, well, he's got to hire Lindy.
Yeah.
And, there were other coaches out there that fit that bill. I mean, you think of Gerard Gallant, you can think of Craig Berube. There's a handful of others, and hey, maybe all it takes is a phone call and have that guy say, no, I'm not interested. And then he's like, all right, well, that's one person down the list. But certainly listen, I think if it weren't for Lindy's past with the organization and having coached this team for so long before, I think everybody would look at this hire and say, yeah, no, this makes a lot of sense. But it's Buffalo, and it feels like it's making the easiest move because it is the easiest move. But I think in a vacuum, hiring Lindy Ruff in this case makes a ton of sense. But I understand it's hard. It's hard to separate the two things and say that he did, that you can believe that he did do due diligence. Boy, that's a mouthful. And got the right guy. But I don't know. I think if the end result is the same, it's fine. But I understand questioning the process.
I'm completely conflicted here because I feel all warm and fuzzy, and Danger saying it's emotion and everything, and him going back to the 1990s here with him leading this team in the fight against Ottawa, and it makes me feel great. And then I get this counterpoint here, and if I may bring in my college buddy Worm, and Worm wrote this to me. And he follows a lot of hockey, Joe. Gene, is this a joke? Just give up now. How awful. Did they watch the Devils the last 2 years? I'm sorry, man. How did things go so bad where, hey, young team, second round of the playoffs, pretty good, to you're fired? What happened there in New Jersey?
Well, a lot of things happened in New Jersey. And Lindy did touch on some of this. He lost Dougie Hamilton, who's I don't know how many people pay close attention to him or the Devils, but Dougie Hamilton's a great defenseman, and they lost him for the season in November. And that goes on top of losing Damon Severson and Ryan Graves in free agency. That's three of the top defensemen getting, either not having them from the start of last season or losing them for the season early on. And that's a lot. That's a lot to make up for. And the only choice they had was to make up for it from within. So that meant taking Luke Hughes, who was, a top prospect and who was getting sheltered minutes in the third pair, and, they're trying to ease him along, to suddenly he's in the top four and learning the NHL fresh out of Michigan, playing 20 minutes a night on a team that had Stanley Cup aspirations. So it's putting him into a bigger spot. It's putting Kevin Ball into a bigger spot. It's calling Simon Nemec up from Utica and putting him into a position where, again, he's going to be really good at some point in the very near future. But asking those guys to kind of take charge of the situation was asking a lot. And, you look at the goaltending, my God. If Lindy should be mad at anybody, he should be mad at Tom Fitzgerald. Because I think when we saw the way the double season ended last year and how, Vitek Vanacek came crashing back to earth pretty quick, and Akira Schmid was looking very good late in the season and was getting playoff starts over Vanacek. You had to go into the offseason thinking, like, they need an upgrade at goal. And they had, there were rumors that, if Connor Hellebuck didn't re-sign in Winnipeg, that, that New Jersey has to strike fast and get after him. Maybe they should have done it a lot, made that move really aggressively, because how much different would the double season have been with an actual goalie in place as opposed to the guys they were running out this, again, it was Schmid, it was Nico Dawes, it was Vanacek. Again, Vanacek had a horrible season. I mean, things were so bad. They traded out both of their goalies at the deadline for two new guys, thinking we got to shake this up. We could still get in the playoffs, and it still didn't work. So it was a season where anything that could have gone wrong did go wrong for the Devils, and that's hard. That's hard, and the expectations were even higher for Lindy there, because after your team puts up 112 points, you're thinking we could win the cup. You're one of the best teams in the NHL. So, everything falls apart, and, Lindy, supposedly clashed with Alexander Holtz. Holtz was in his doghouse, which I think Sabres fans will remember guys that were in Lindy's doghouse back in the day, how that went. So, it was just one of those things where just a bad season. It was a bad season, and you know what? When the stakes are that high, a move has to get made, and the Devils did it. So, I get it. Believe me, I understand everybody being kind of shaky about seeing how things went there and crossing it up. But I mean, we've seen that stuff happen in Buffalo in the last few years too, with injuries and goalies getting hurt and, goalies playing badly and all that kind of stuff. So bad things happen to teams, and, there's punishment that comes from it. But I think given the makeup of the Sabres team, and the Sabres team has better goaltending than the Devils had by far. So that's gonna cover up a lot of problems that he faced in Jersey. I totally understand not thinking like this is the right move, but I think, again, in a vacuum, I think this is something that can work. This is something that absolutely can work and can work great.
So, Joe, the word that we've been hearing for the last 7 days, from Kevin Adams' press conference announcing the firing of Don Granato, to locker cleanout day 1 and 2, to yesterday's introduction of Lindy Ruff, the word is accountability. And I loved Lindy Ruff's explanation of accountability. He says it starts with the individual player holding themselves accountable first. You heard all the players mention how there was a lack of accountability within the locker room, and yet the coach gets fired. The players are still here. So I guess, how do you, if you're Lindy Ruff, make a locker room full of serial underachievers begin to hold themselves accountable first and foremost?
Well, it starts by making sure that taking stock of what the issues were a year ago, and making sure that stuff doesn't happen again. And I'm sure that requires Lindy going over a lot of tape and looking back on situations. I'm sure there are things that came up in those, the end of the season meetings between Kevin and the players. And I'm sure they're apprised of these things during the season too. There's no way that, everybody's keeping a list and saving it for the end of the year. That stuff doesn't happen. But I'm sure that there are things and there's stuff with players that happen that they're going like, hey, listen, these are the things that were going on that just, nothing was done about it. These are the kinds of things that need to get fixed. And these are the kind of checks that we need to have in place to make sure this stuff doesn't happen again. And I really think that that's something that they're going to make sure that they've got figured out before they even step foot on the ice for camp. They're going to make sure that these things are squared away, and that if there are any issues with players that maybe Lindy thinks that this guy isn't going to work out, maybe they figure that out by trades, whatever, what have you. I know everybody keeps looking at Jeff Skinner going, boy, this isn't going to work, but you never know. I mean, you don't know, and Skinner's a veteran, so we'll see what happens. But and I'm certainly not singling him out for a lack of accountability there. It requires the coach to be on top of everything, and not, sometimes it means not letting young players get away with mistakes that they make, and if it's repeated stuff, then you got to fix that too. But if we know anything about Lindy, he's going to be right on top of that stuff right away. And if guys are making mistakes and they're making repeated mistakes, they're not going to play. And that I think is the biggest issue for them, and that the players recognized it at the end of the year, saying hey, listen, we're not going to go anywhere if the coach isn't going to kind of get this stuff under control. And that to me is a very grown-up thing to see out of these players, because so many times you'll see players being like, I don't know, I think everything's pretty good, everything's okay, and things were not okay. So the fact that Thompson and Tuck and all these guys were saying, we need a coach to kind of keep this in check, is a good thing.
We're talking to Joe Yerdon, Bleacher Report, as the Amherst. Let's shift the focus here, but sort of shift the focus. Before we start talking about Syracuse and how far this team may end up, Joe, there's one guy that we're close to. We do have a bias. We talk to him every week. Seth Appert. We really, really like Seth Appert. I'm just stunned they didn't give him more of a chance, at least, ruling him out immediately. And I'm just wondering where the story goes from here, Joe, that if you have Lindy Ruff, Seth Appert isn't going to go up in the next year, 2, 3, who knows how long, and you have openings around the league. You have now one in San Jose today. What is the threat here that Seth Appert actually is going to get some interviews here around the NHL, do you think?
There's plenty of openings, and I'm sure that is a serious concern for the Sabres. It would have to be. You'd have to when you've got a coach in your minor league ranks that's doing a great job with developing guys, and is young and is in touch with the players and is able to really get on the same level with them, and you get that understanding of where they're at. There has to be concern. There has to be worry that hey, maybe somebody's going to come with an offer that he can't refuse, and that we can't really do a lot about. But I have to believe that, given the way Kevin Adams feels about Seth, and Adams is the one who hired Seth years ago to take the reins there. I have to believe there's no way he's going to let him get out of his reach and to get away from the organization. There's just I would find it unfathomable if Seth was to leave the organization. I firmly believe Seth is in demand, and he should be in demand. He's a heck of a coach. He's a heck of a coach, heck of a guy, and he's really good with young guys. But my podcast partner Lance Lasowski reported that Lindy got a 2-year deal out of this. That to me kind of got my eyebrow raised, because it makes me wonder who's Lindy's assistant's going to be. I asked Lindy yesterday if he's going to be bringing in an assistant. He said yes. He wants to get to know the staff first. Kind of get your feet under you first before you go hiring an assistant. And I think the longer that spot goes unfilled, and if the Amherst season just happens to coincidentally be going on while it stays unfilled, I think that keeps the door open that maybe Seth could be moved up to Buffalo. But
we know who was on. Sorry, Joe. What about Taylor? Would he be in line for that, or would that be too much to swallow going back to the organization that actually fired you?
I think given the way that ended with Tails, I can't see that. I can't see that move coming. Although, listen, if he's Lindy's guy, then like, hey, maybe you just say like, okay, this is what we got to do. But I know that was a bit of a clash of opinions on how to run things in Rochester by the end, I think. But I gotta think that if there's any kind of remote threat that an NHL team, whether it's say San Jose just fired Quinn today, maybe Ottawa, somebody else where they've got an opening and they're saying like, hey, Appert's doing a heck of a job in Rochester. Let's get him before somebody else does. I gotta think that Kevin's gonna be like, hey, listen, come be Lindy's assistant, and then we'll see how things progress from there. Again, this is just all sort of getting a feel from it from the outside, but I just don't see a way that Adams lets Appert get away without having a final shot to keep him on board.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Joe, and a lot of it makes sense. But if you're Seth Appert and you want to be a head coach rather than an assistant coach, and you've never crossed paths with Lindy Ruff, which he told us yesterday, I mean, it feels like you might be mixing oil and water there just for the sake of keeping a guy around when he might have a better opportunity somewhere else. And we're not wishing Seth Appert to go anywhere. We want to keep him here as long as he's willing to stay, because we've enjoyed a really nice run with the Amherst. Selfishly, we want to see this team kind of remain intact for as long as possible. Oh yeah, no, I believe me, I completely understand. I completely understand that sentiment. And you're right. Like if another NHL team comes calling and says, "Hey, we want to make you our head coach," that's a tough offer to beat, and that would ultimately be up to Seth to decide if he's ready to do that or not. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess it would all depend on the situation. With ownership there, with the ownership with wherever whatever team it is, and everything else that goes into that, but. I would have to think that kind of offer would be very difficult to pass on. But it's I would imagine that Adams has a better feel for this entire thing than us on the outside do. But yeah, it's certainly something to keep an eye on until everything gets settled out.
When we this is going back a few years, Joe, when we had Randy Sexton on, he was the GM of the Amherst at that point. And just asked him, like, and the Amherst had just gotten in the postseason. They're ready to play Toronto. I'm like, Randy, best of 5. Like, what is this format? If it's about development, why wouldn't you want more hockey? He's like, you're absolutely right. So, with that being said here, Amherst and Syracuse. I love the way the Amherst have played here. Everybody has the last month. It is hockey. And it is a short series. So what are your thoughts here about this matchup that begins on Friday?
I think it shapes up very similarly to how it did last year. These are two teams that are playing really well. They've been two of the best teams in the division, especially at second. Syracuse has been great all year. The Amherst have been a lot better in the second half, of course. But Syracuse hasn't changed the way that they play at all. They're going to play heavy. They're going to play hard. They're going to play physical. They've got a ton of talent. But the Amherst do too. And the Amherst are playing really good hockey. And their best players are really taking off. I mean, Kulik's been awesome. It's amazing how he was quiet for a good span there. He was banged up a little bit too, but man, he's been electric here of late. And you're seeing all these guys, really stepping up their play. And now you've got Levi playing goal. This sets up to be a really interesting series. And I know interesting isn't what fans want it to be. They want to hear our team's going to win in 3 games and move on. But this is going to be a really interesting battle between these two because they're really close. They're really, really close. And I think the way Rochester has closed this season out, I just really like the way that they're playing. And I think the way that they set up and you've got all kinds of talent up and down the lineup, and you've got a ton of hard workers. And I love the season Jobson's had. He's been so good. Very deserving team MVP. They've got the right kind of role players and talent guys to make this work and to be able to make another run. But man, this is naughty. This is naughty. The best thing for them would have been to win the division, but I mean that was Cleveland. Cleveland had a monster weekend, so congrats to them to close it out. But this is listen. Playoffs are supposed to be hard. They're supposed to be tough, but it is a lot to like about how this Amerks team has been playing the last couple of months, honestly. But this is going to be fascinating. I'm excited by this, and I would not be surprised if this goes the same way it did last year, down to a fifth game to move on.
So, Joe, as we manage our expectations for the Amerks here in the postseason, the question that we've kind of been looking at and thinking about is roster actually more talented than last year's roster that made that run to the Eastern Conference Final?
Boy, it's close, isn't it? It's really close. I think when you consider the guys that have come in since then, that have come in late. I think of like Anton Wahlberg. I think he's looked great since coming in. I think he's going to be a super player as time goes down. I think overall, you add in Wahlberg, you add in Oslin, but it's the guys you already have in place. It's Kulik, it's Roseanne, Mersch is fantastic. Jobs is having a great season. All these guys are just playing really, really well. And I think the defensive setup is a lot stronger too. I think it's a little bit deeper on the back end, and certainly with Levi and Tokarski in that, I think, I don't know if Hauser's still banged up or not, but even having him there as a number 3, this is about as deep and as talented as it's been in a long time. It's just the league is so hard. It's such a hard league when you've got among the best teams, and that's not even looking at the other division with Hershey sitting there waiting, getting ready to beat everybody's heads in. But I think this group might be a little bit more talented than last year, but it's close. But I think the better players that you've got, and certainly younger better players that you've got, like with Levi and them, puts it up maybe just a little bit more. But it's close. It's real close.
Joe, last one for me. Cup playoffs, your thoughts here so far? And tonight, we only had 2 games here, but does the trend of teams winning on home ice continue? Tampa Bay down 0-2 to Florida, Islanders down 0-2 to Carolina.
Yeah, the way the Islanders lost game 2.
Terrible.
Geez, that's got a just end the series now sort of feel to it. If they weren't going back to UBS on Long Island for the next 2 games, I'd say just forget it. Don't even bother playing the next 2, because that's a kind of collapse that you just don't do in the playoffs. Like in one game, like you've got that game on lockdown, and you play a lockdown style of game. But the problem was Carolina never stops coming at you, and the Islanders thought, well, we can hold it down for 30 minutes and not do anything for the second part of the game. You can't do that with that team. You just have to keep going back and fighting back at them and blocking shots, and it just didn't work. And the Canes took it to them, and the Canes are too good for that kind of stuff. And this has been my issue with the Isles all year, is that if they play something closer to 90s hockey than they do to modern hockey, and that stuff doesn't last. That you're going to run out of gas fast playing that kind of way. And Waugh gave him a second win, but that's tough. That's really tough. And I don't know how that's going to work. Florida Tampa's been awesome. All the former Sabre guys in Florida have been great, and Carter Verhaeghe, geez, does he not score? And does he only score important goals? It seems to be the only thing he does. Yeah. My goodness, what a player! But I'm going to be really interested, and it's classic. I'm really interested to see what happens in Toronto and Boston in Game 3.
Yeah,
just because I didn't like the way Boston closed out that game. Ullmark played great, but Boston just, Matthews goes Superman style. Like that's tough, but they got really scrambly late in that game trying to track everybody down. I didn't like that. And the Bruins have been guilty of doing that a lot in third period this year. So curious to see if it changes with them being on the road, and maybe they get a little bit more focus and attention to detail against them.
Joe, tell us about what you're working on here through the course of the postseason at Noted Hockey and Bleacher Report. And let's not forget about that podcast you talked about with Lance, Maintenance Day. Yeah,
Maintenance Day. Yeah, we'll be getting back on the horse to kind of collect our thoughts after the Lindy hiring here. We emptied out the tank after they fired Don and did like a 2-hour super show. We might have to do the same here, discussing Lindy and what's to come and what to make of everything there. Lance and I got a coordinator scheduled to get that together. Bleacher Report, tons of playoff stuff going on there. It'll be just a boatload of playoff stuff. I'll be going up to Toronto at some point for playoffs to cover some games there, so that'll be fun. And at Noted Hockey, Sabres, tons of Sabres, lots of Lindy. We'll be breaking down the roster to come and maybe get into some system stuff about Lindy, about what people can expect to see once they get back on the ice in September and get ready for a new campaign. I'm not wishing away summer, but I'm kind of ready for camp already.
Well, hopefully we get to see you at the arena coming up here in the month of May. Who knows how longer,
Absolutely.
Joe? Yeah, appreciate you stopping by today, Joe.
Thanks, guys. And yeah, I'll definitely see you over at Blue Cross at some point here soon.
Sounds good. Joe Yerdon covering the Sabres, Amerks, and NHL. You can read his work at Noted Hockey, Bleacher Report. You can hear his work with Lance Lysowski on the Maintenance Day podcast. Always appreciate Joe stopping by the sports bar.
Yeah, the way, is it fair to say Kevin Adams cut corners on the coaching search?
Of course.
Yeah, so in one of your most loyal employees, one of your best employees, I'm going to stop short of saying they did Seth Appert wrong, but Seth Appert has to look at the situations like, what's my future? And I'm going to disagree with Joe on this. He doesn't want to be an NHL assistant.
I agree.
That he wants to be a head coach. He could have gone anywhere last year. He could go anywhere this year. So the idea that all of a sudden, yeah, you know what, I'll go up and be an assistant. No, that's
for a guy that he's never crossed paths with before. That feels like a stretch.
That feels like very risky. That 2 years from now you're out of hockey altogether.
Right.
So.
Well, it'll be interesting to follow along with and see exactly how it plays out. And I think a lot of it does have to do with the Amerks' performance here in the postseason and just how much of an impact Seth Appert's coaching job does and gets the attention of other NHL executives, other teams. I don't know that, we don't know Seth's contractual situation with the organization. We don't know any of that. I don't know that it's a year-to-year thing or a multiple-year thing, or what. We know that he's got a relationship with Kevin Adams and he's got a relationship with Jason Karmanos, and that Kevin Adams is probably viewing Seth Appert as a source of pride right now. The fact that you have a guy who's done what he's done with this organization here in Rochester bodes well for his future, whether it's within the Sabres organization or hopefully not somewhere else.
Look, if you're San Jose, Ottawa, Detroit, any of these teams, okay, what direction do we want to go for? Retread route. Okay, there's Berube. Hey, NHL assistant. Ironically, Michael Pekka.
Yeah, sure.
You're gonna have NHL assistants, and Pekka worked, I say ironically, for Seth Appert. Last year, you may have college coaches. That was like the big buzzy thing a couple years ago, and Quinn just getting fired today. And then you'll look at the American League. And I am not up on other coaches around the American League, but I got to tell you that I read articles outside of Rochester that point at Seth Appert.
Interesting. Next hour, Jeremy White, WGR. He'll be joining us. We'll talk the wide receiver train with Jeremy. We've got some takes on tap next in the sports bar.
So the draft tomorrow, you could say, it starts with Chicago. No. To me, it starts with the team that resides in Buffalo's division. What is New England going to do? Danger, they can turn things around here. Or maybe not. And I'm going to go over some history here and point the Patriots in the direction. If you're a Patriot fan, I got thoughts on this. And if you're a Bills fan, that certainly relates to you. And then also, I know you don't want to hear this, but the video they put out for the Bears' new stadium, are we this dumb?
I've got some other issues with it as well.
Okay.
There's a few things that you could point to as far as how this was rolled out today that you could really say are kind of icky.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's a little nauseating, but we'll get into that. We got some takes on tap. Oh, I've got maybe I'm just too immersed in NFL draft talk, but a new way to strike up conversation, a nice little icebreaker that I'm going to need a verdict on. We'll get to that and more next before we get to Jeremy White, who joins us right around 4:25. That's all on the way, along with your calls at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
It's the NFL Draft first round.
Wait till you see my mock draft that drops. Let's just say that.
That's called a tease.
Yeah.
Hey, Reggie Bush got his Heisman back.
Oh, who cares?
Mike Danger.
We listeners are truly listening to a powerhouse sports show. Next, I'm going to do 20 minutes of fart jokes.
Gene Battaglia.
Listen, we can interview a Hall of Fame level agent. We can talk to a head coach. We can talk to an info guy. And Mike Danger can tell a fart joke and I can gossip.
That's right. We're going to do all of that.
My high school girlfriend came from Rochester, so I've always had a warm spot for it.
We're very provincial in this town.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Lindy.
Amherst Crunch, Friday at 7.
Playoffs?
Certainly expect it to be a sellout both games this weekend. Knowing now from the last 2 years the electricity and what this place does at playoff time is pretty special, and I'm excited for it.
Can we get a go Amherst, like go Bills?
I would like it to be safe as death. What do you mean? Don't look behind you.
The Amherst coming.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Is Rochester the Kevin Bacon of American cities? I think it is.
It is.
I think it is.
It is.
We're about 15 minutes away from the conductor of the wide receiver train. WGR's Jeremy White will be stopping by the sports bar to talk some Bills NFL draft, Gino, and we appreciate everybody stopping by and checking us out at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, or our video stream on our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester, also on Twitch and your smart device when you ask it to play, 95.7 The Fan. Smoke screens come in a wide variety of forms in the world that we live in now. It used to be a GM just openly lying, right? Just saying something that isn't actually true, or knowing that they're not going to do what they say they're going to do. I wanted to present this to you and just kind of like when you see it, you know, a lot of people will view it and be like, wow, that's really good data that Adam Schefter is sharing with us today. I don't know if you saw this cross your feed or not. It's a chart that projects, they call it the hit rate by position of first-round draft picks. And, you know, all the linemen are up there up at the top, and down there at the very bottom, the lowest hit rate is wide receiver. Now, how do they determine what a hit is on this graph? They determine it by the player's signability, for the player signing a deal, a second deal with the team that drafted them, which is such a flawed metric for this argument. In this argument, with this data, then you would view Daniel Jones as a hit at quarterback. Is anybody really calling Daniel Jones a hit at quarterback? And my lasting impression of it is there's an NFL GM who wants to draft a wide receiver who put this out to Adam Schefter to share with the world today. Smokescreen.
It's funny, like to me, that's number 2 on the list. To me, number 1, everybody jumped on this. Did you see this from Get Up this morning? And maybe this is Greenberg. This is a mandate. Hey, you have to talk about ESPN Bet. Okay, so bringing up to Adam Schefter that ESPN Bet, the odds have shifted about the Chargers trading Justin Herbert. Huh? Yeah, like honestly, and Schefter just completely shuts this down immediately. Yeah. Like he said, no, I'm going to throw cold water on that, and a lot of people online saying, no, you should throw cold water on Greenberg for asking that too.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, this is crazy at this point. I got this. You can write to Danger at AKA Mike Danger. I'm at Gene Battaglia. You can write to us on X, The Fan Rochester. Matt writing in with us a simple question. Gene, are you doing a mock draft? No, we're not doing a mock draft, Matt. I honestly, like in print form, online, that makes sense. It's just too long. And let's be honest, there's some teams that you just don't care about, okay? So to go through that whole exercise to me is not good radio.
Well, here's where I'm at with it, Matt, and I appreciate you asking, or even thinking that Gene or I can do a mock draft that you would view as credible or something that you would actually be interested in. That's humbling. But if it was my full-time job, like if this, what we do here every day, like if I was that immersed in it, if I was Jeremy White, yes, I would do a mock draft. Sal Capaccio did his one mock draft today.
Yeah, but I think he is pointing to people, hey, go on the website and do the mock. I'm going to just take a piece here. Okay.
Go ahead.
And that would be the Patriots. And look, if the Patriots, they're kind of dead, right? It's kind of funny. We're pointing at them. And yes, I know Bills lost to them last year, but let's be real. They're picking third overall. But if they're going to have some sort of resurrection, right? Well, then it's got to start tomorrow night. Like, pick the right quarterback, plain and simple. Or is it plain and simple? Number 3, is it really, Danger, a good spot? Look, I'm not putting this in the prism of the number 3 overall pick, but rather the third quarterback taken in each of the last 10 drafts.
Oh,
Let's
this
just
is going to be good.
Yeah, so...
But we should keep in mind, like, I love these exercises, and we say it all the time, like, quarterbacks succeed based on where they go and what's put around them and all of these other factors. But you have a trend here that's pretty indisputable.
Yeah, it's going to shine a light on this because I think we can assume with the odd shift, by the way, that Daniels is going to go to Washington at 2. So do the Patriots want to take Drake May? Do they want to take McCarthy? Here's the history here. And again, it's not the pick 3 overall. It's just the third quarterback taken. Last year was Anthony Richardson. And look, he showed some ability and then he got hurt. Which if you're not on the field, then you're not doing anything. So that's an incomplete. Malik Willis. That doesn't seem like that long ago where Malik Willis, oh my gosh, he's going to go number 2 overall.
Yeah. Malik Willis feels like what led to the rift inside the Titans organization. Any dysfunction that existed between GM and head coach, I would probably put squarely on their selection of Malik Willis. Somebody that I'm sure Vrabel didn't want and somebody that the GM did want.
Yeah, if you are one of these teams picking at the top, when was the last time we had quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3? You got to go back to 2021 where you had Trevor Lawrence, okay, Zach Wilson, and then did you forget who moved up to number 3? Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Oh, back up in the league. Okay, Justin Herbert, that's a hit.
Yep.
Dwayne Haskins.
Nope.
He's not even on this planet anymore.
No.
Rest in peace. Josh Allen.
All right, that's a hit.
Deshaun Watson.
I mean, he did sign a second contract with his team, so I guess that's a hit, right?
Yeah. Do we call Deshaun Watson a hit? That's the one I'm kind of wavering on.
I think so.
Yeah, I'll give that, but I don't feel great about it right now. Paxton Lynch.
Yikes.
This is funny. I don't even know who this guy is. In 2015, the Saints took some guy named Garrett Grayson.
That was the third quarterback off the board?
Yes. Honest to God, Danger.
Wow.
That was just a bad quarterback draft. And then you had Teddy Bridgewater.
Okay.
Look, so if you go over that, 2 franchise guys, one that's being paid like a franchise guy today in Watson, and you're too soon to tell on Richardson. Based on this, what is that? Somewhere between 30 and 40% the hit rate? Look, the Patriots, here's the take. They'd actually be better off getting out of 3. Let someone else take the risk and load up in other places. That's why this report from the Boston Herald where they say, we haven't gotten a serious offer. Oh, they've gotten serious offers. They're just asking everybody else, hey, you know what they say in sales? Sharpen the pencil, boys. Sharpen the pencil. I'm predicting the Patriots move out of 3 tomorrow night.
Okay. That's what Mr. Mayo is going to want to do?
You're never going to let me forget that.
It's the best. We've got a full season ahead of us of
Mr. Mayo.
The Bills looking down at Mr. Mayo and his team that he's coaching. Jared Mayo. I'm sorry, Gerard. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayo.
Mr. Mayo. Well, the story, I called him Jared, and he corrected me, and then he does the interview, and in my panic and in my own neurosis, I couldn't remember what I said wrong and what was correct, and I had no choice but to thank him as Mr. Mayo.
21, 22 years old probably at the time.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm calling him Mr.
Thank
Mayo.
you, Mr. Mayo.
Mr. Mayo.
Thank you for not crushing my skull for mispronouncing your first name. Hey, how about this? I'm going to need a verdict here. This might be a new way to strike up a conversation, and maybe it's just me too immersed in NFL draft talk. How about breaking the ice by asking what someone's 40 time is? You know, I'm making it up, but saying you run like a 4.9 40 feels like something that would earn you immediate respect in certain circles. I need a verdict on this.
Joey Whalen's coming tomorrow.
Yeah. So,
you can ask him.
Do you think Joey starts his conversation by, as an icebreaker by saying that he, can run marathons in, sub 2.5 hours? What's his per mile? He's like sub 5 minute mile.
He was explaining to me what it's like as a professional for the Boston Marathon. Like you're in like a different class.
Yeah.
You get treated. You get seated.
Yeah.
You're. I don't want to say pampered, but you're not the peasantry that's just kind of lining up and
you're
going.
an actual professional athlete.
Yeah.
What's great about events that happen throughout the course of the year here, like the run into the green, is you get to compete with professional athletes. Like Joey Whalen just crushes the field, shows up and runs it in this ridiculous pace. I don't know. I feel like, at least maybe for the next couple of days, or certainly next year when we get back to combine season, you start, breaking the ice by giving your 40 time. It feels like that might be a way to set a tone.
I would think that me and like everybody else wouldn't have any clue what my 40 time was.
Well, let's get to it. We can find a field, and maybe this is one of our activities during training camp this year. We get on the field at Growney Stadium when we see Bill's staffers working out all the time. We just do 40 yards, do a 40-yard sprint. Let's time each other and see how we do. We need to make it part of our byline, Mike Danger,
Derek, everybody else.
Mike Danger, 4.940.
I'd be like 6 something.
I'd be like Mike Danger, 5'10", 185 pounds, runs a 5.440. Like that's our stat line going into every show. We got to make sure.
See, darn it! Now I'm gonna want to go to a turf field and actually try this out.
Of course, why not? Hope we don't die 40 yards, at your very fastest. Feels like it might put us out, but, why not? Let's give it a shot.
So the Bears tomorrow night are picking number 1 overall. Fans are going to be so excited. This is like the high point since when? Honestly, since they were in the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship, maybe?
It's the biggest moment of hope I think we've had in some time.
Okay, what a perfect time, because the wallet might be open. Let's go make the ask right now. Dangers. The Chicago Bears put out a new video touting the Dome Stadium. Wow, I'm like, let's take a look here. Let's see what this is all about. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Lakefront Legacy is the name of the video. Bullet point number 1, revitalizing Chicago's lakefront. I had no idea what that had to do with sightlines or anything. They show boat slip parking for the Dome. That works great in November, maybe even October, in Chicago. Give me a break. Oh, we're only getting started here, folks. Bullet point number 2, a community-centric design. Shows a freaking baseball diamond. I shouldn't.
They play softball, that big softball. They have leagues all over Chicago.
How many times have I gone to a Bills game and thought, me and the guys would love to play a little softball out here before the game.
You sound like you're jealous right now.
No, I'm only getting started.
When was the last time you saw drone footage, aerial view, or any sort of virtual tour of the new Bills Stadium? I think you're jealous right now.
Well, no, okay. Here's number 3. Okay, and this is true not just for Chicago, but everyone. Enhanced lakefront pathway for bikes and pedestrians.
Gotta have it.
Again, haven't you always wanted to ride your bike to a Bills game? Honestly, you're talking to some lawmaker that, oh my gosh, we're gonna build a bike path here. Bullet point number 4. This is my favorite. Strengthens synergies with the museums.
Yep.
What the F does that even mean? What does that even mean, Danger?
I know what it means. Okay, you've never been there. I have. I know this area. I know what they're doing here, and I see what they're doing. And this is why I'm excited about it. Now, not everything that they did today I'm going to approve of. I'm going to explain in a second. But they did give you they did a really good job of laying out. If you're in Chicago, I have to imagine you see this and you're like, oh my God, they're going to keep the columnade, what's the word I'm looking for? The columns of Soldier Field. They stay there. Soldier Field comes down, and basically everything where Soldier Field was becomes this green space that we're talking about, where there's fields and there's pathways, and it's all along the lake. And the lake is, that part of the area there with the lake is beautiful. The museums are there, but they're disconnected. It's not easy to get to them, but this kind of connects them all together, makes them all kind of within walking distance of each other, instead of kind of disconnected on their own little islands like they are right now. I see what they're doing. And then, of course, we haven't even talked about the stadium. I mean, when they show the stadium and what it could look like inside for not just Bear games, but also, and they didn't even hold back, the Big Ten Championship, the Final Four, concerts. Man, I saw it. I'm like, Indianapolis, stay down. You are no longer going to be considered the premier hosting venue in the Midwest. It will now be Chicago moving forward. You don't have this kind of wealth and this kind of venue. We're going to go ahead and build this palace and take all of your events away from you. That's the way I saw it.
Maybe you got to get like there. This is the ask now.
The thing that I didn't like, the thing that I thought was ridiculous, and the thing that's actually kind of offensive, they had a pastor speaking at their press conference. You're basically asking God to help you build a stadium that you're going to fleece the public with in order to make billionaires more rich. That part is disgusting. That part is shameful and disgusting. Could you imagine the Pagulas bringing a pastor up as they're talking about breaking ground at New Highmark Stadium, asking for a prayer?
Who's the bishop in Rochester these days? I don't even know.
Oh my God.
Wow. Should we feed the poor? Should we help our schools? I'm the pastor. No, we need football.
Yeah, and half of this is going to be paid by you.
Oh my gosh.
And none of it, when it's all said and done, will be paid by the Bears. But let's bring up a pastor to pray for this to happen. Disgusting. That part is sick and gross. But I tell you, the renderings, and they say in the actual video of the drone footage, renderings are subject to change. As we always note, the renderings never look like
ever.
But it was pretty damn impressive and got me excited. And of course, I'm already like thinking, all right, when are they going to make this? When is this going to be done? When can I get there to check it all out? It'll be a good time.
Gosh, I'm in tears. We got to get to Jeremy White before we do that. Deanna writing in, Gene, you and Danger should run the 40-yard dash for charity like Eisen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah. So hey, opportunity.
We'll find our charity of choice here, and we'll do it. I'm all for it. And I'm not going to say that I'm faster than Gene or Gene's faster than me. I'm just going to say, I want as good a time as I can possibly put forth. And then we look for improvement year by year. We try to get better every year. We're not getting worse. We're getting better every year.
Coach Danger, ladies.
That's right. Jeremy White joins us next. We'll talk plenty of Buffalo Bills draft as the conductor of the wide receiver train stops by the sports bar, and your phone calls as well at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
Top shelf sports talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
If the Bills take 28 and 60, they could get to number
17, right? Isn't that what we said? 17, 16, somewhere in there?
17, 18. Jacksonville, Cincinnati. Now, they could go up and talk to Seattle, but they might have to throw in a fifth.
And they may have to, because
they might have to
a couple of AFC teams may have no interest in helping the Bills.
They could throw in a fifth round, the 1, the 2, and
they
the
got
5
3
round,
fives.
and a 5-rounder, and they could get up there and do that, yes.
There's Brownie and Tasker earlier today on One Bills Live talking about a path for the Bills to trade up in round 1 of tomorrow night's NFL draft. We now welcome in the conductor of the wide receiver train. And Jeremy, I know that Gene is going to present some opposition. I'm fully expecting the train to run him over and squash him like a bug. Jeremy White, WGR, stopping by the sports bar, bud. I feel like we're all in the same boat here. We've scorched the earth with every possible scenario, every potential player that could end up with the Buffalo Bills. And when it all comes down to it, I don't know that any of us know anything, but you seem very confident that it will be a wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills early in this draft.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of lead up to this. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like an election night, or it feels like you've got a big speech tomorrow, or we're all waiting. It's like the Super Bowl of the off season, right? We're all hoping it goes a certain way, and we all want the Bills to get better, but it has to be a receiver. If it's not a receiver in the first round, then the Bills are going to be even more desperate in the second round. So I don't think they want to get that desperate in the second. I think Brandon Beane won't mess around, and he'll take someone, whether it's a 28 or a move up. He loves to move up. I'm feeling like, depending on the board falls, he's going in tomorrow looking to get one.
But Jeremy, here's counterpoint number one. I'm like an attorney presenting this to you. You do that, and I think you're only coming away with, well, if you're lucky, 1 star. I want at least 2 starters on this team. And by starter, I mean a guy that maybe rotates in on the defensive line, or maybe it's a safety that can compete there, because the guys you have back there, I think you could upgrade. So if you're going to lay out what is the dream scenario for the Buffalo Bills in this draft, would it not be 2 starters, and would it not be pick 28, best player on the board, and then in the second round, if you didn't go wide receiver, then you still can get that guy in the second round at wideout?
Yeah, I mean, there are many different paths to get there. I mean, if they went with the 28th pick, if they went Xavier Legette, I'd be fine, or A.D. Mitchell is another idea. Xavier Worthy all of a sudden is like moving on boards big time, and maybe he's the pick at 28. So, you get a receiver there, and then, in the second round, however the board falls, that might be another receiver. It might be a defensive end, a defensive tackle. I do feel like it's kind of cheating to tell me you want a starter and then tell me he's going to rotate in, though, while we're at it. A rotational defensive line piece. Let's talk about how one of the guys they lost was Gabe Davis, who played like 90% of snaps. And all the defensive ends they ever draft peak at what, 60, 55? Like, they spend so much on their defensive line just to cycle them in and out nonstop. And the defensive ends have 4 different guys that have played before. At receiver, I'm on Shakir and Curtis Samuel. So you want 2 starters, I might want 2 starters at receiver.
Okay, all right, so maybe if we just look at this, maybe I'm just cautioning you and everybody else that Brandon Beane values positions differently than you and Danger and a lot of other people. We say wide receiver. There's been other drafts, Jeremy, where I've said, they're going to go wide receiver on day 2, and then they don't, and then you're wondering what happened. And then time after time after time, you see these high picks for a defensive lineman. Jeremy, will your head explode if the pick ends up being Chop Robinson at 28?
No, Chop Robinson, I would not explode. We call those previous drafts mistakes. They made a mistake when they drafted James Cook in the second round, trading down twice and then taking James Cook. The reason is they probably should have traded up and got one of those receivers to mix in. Like, part of the reason we are all here talking about this so desperately is that the Bills have decided to just let this bill go unpaid for years. 2 playoff games ago, Cole Beasley and John Brown off the street to help this position. That was a problem. That was not okay. Jake Kumaro is your number 1 depth boundary receiver when Gabe Davis is out. That is not okay. Like, this has been 3 years of them being really undermanned at the position, and then they traded Diggs. So, like, the model before was we got Diggs, and whoever else we throw out there will be fine. And now there's nobody to cover like that.
Samuel looks nice. Shakir is a nice find. I think they've got the middle of the field good to go. Like between those two guys and Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, like the middle of the field are going to be fine. But if you don't have any threats on the outside, then guess what defenses are going to do? I mean, they're just going to go ahead and single those guys on the outside and focus everything on the middle. And your offense is going to be in real trouble. So, I mean, my head won't explode at Chop Robinson. He's probably a good player, and that's fine. It just, now I've got 32 picks until my next wide receiver, which means I'll be trading up out of number 60 because I don't think they can afford to wait that long. And, you know, the other thing that is tough about this is whatever ends up happening, we don't ever get to know it. It doesn't mean that's what the Bills wanted to happen. You know, they could say that they did the best they could and that they followed their board. But Brandon Beane, he gave a lot. He revealed a lot when talking to his presser last week, saying the reason he trades up one spot, two spots, is because he likes to go to bed Thursday night with the guy that he wanted. And if he trades down, he's now got to sleep on that and wonder what's going to happen with the board. And if he takes a guy 28th and it's a defensive end, that's fine. He'll have that guy that he wants. But he'll have to sleep and spend the night knowing, I still need a receiver desperately. And to move up from that second-round pick at 60, maybe that Minnesota pick they have next year in the second round, maybe that becomes the ammunition to get them from 60 to 40 or whatever it is. But they cannot come out of this draft without a receiver. They might value positions differently than we do. If they value receiver much more differently than we do, then they value it less than the league. It is the second most important position. And Josh Allen needs help out there. So, I'm confident, no pressure. Just make sure they get it done.
Oh, Jeremy, he also mentioned in his press conference yesterday that he remembered being in Carolina and not having a first-round draft pick. Now, my eyes get wide when we talk about wide receiver in this class specifically, and there's one player in particular that feels like he's not out of reach, and if he were to be selected by the Buffalo Bills, he could eventually be more than what the team had in Stephon Diggs, and that player is Rome Odunze. I just can't get out of my head the idea that the Bills could give up a little bit more, including maybe potentially a first-round pick next year, to get to a spot where they end up taking the Washington wide receiver. Where are you at on that kind of wild swing from Brandon Beane tomorrow night?
Well, that's where I think that second rounder they got from Minnesota in the Diggs trade is kind of key. Like he said, I don't love giving up first, but if it makes sense, we will. So that lays the groundwork for, not ruling it out. And he also talked about trading for future picks and how they're valued if they're from perennial playoff teams. And, of course, he wasn't speaking about his own team, but his own team is a perennial playoff team. Their first-round pick next year is going to be where? 26th or later?
Yeah.
And they have 2 seconds, one belonging to Minnesota, who is going to be starting a rookie quarterback. So, I know it doesn't always work to say, well, we already have, capital there. That means we can spend it. Not everyone subscribes to that, and I understand that. But there are trading first-round picks, and then there's trading first-round picks. And sometimes I think the blanket statements about how it's always wrong and always bad, they're probably right. But, it's not crazy to me to say that the Bills are in a position where we can't really be process-oriented anymore. It has to be results-based. Process says this team is the best team in football the last 4 years. They have more wins than anybody in the regular season. They're consistently winning their division, making the playoffs, getting to a certain level, and hitting their head. So process works to this point, and we all know if they did that for another 10 years, we would consider the process to have failed. So it's about pushing in and doing whatever you can, maybe breaking a little process, taking a couple of gambles here or there to make sure you do everything you can to get yourself the best chance at better results.
Yeah, Jeremy White, WGR, our guest here in the Sports Bar. One thing we kind of did learn last week, I didn't know this, that when Kincaid was selected before that, it was actually Josh Allen supposedly texting Brandon Beane. Jeremy, I kind of like that. And if he was doing that last year, I would have to think that Josh Allen is doing that again this year. Here's my question, because now with Diggs out of the picture, I mean, if there was any question before, Josh Allen, how can he develop as the true alpha in this offense? And I would hope he's got some say as far as who the Bills should take here.
Me too. And I found it really interesting. He was on a podcast, maybe with Jordan Palmer, the QB Room, one of those podcasts recently. He rattled off 10 receivers' names off the top of his head. So he's keyed in on the draft. He talked about their combine performances. He talked about Xavier Leggette's accent. Like, Josh Allen is on the wide receiver train. He's paying attention to all these receivers very closely, and I don't know that he's doing that for defensive tackles or defensive ends. I mean, he's not exactly going to say do this or else, but you know how it goes. If your star quarterback, you think he needs an A1 out there to run with for a couple of years, and you think the player is the right kind of guy for that, then you make sure you get it done. The Julio Jones trade versus the Sammy Watkins trade, right? These are two big wide receiver trades that have happened where a team gave up a future first. In the Julio Jones case, the Falcons gave up a ton. They had a quarterback they knew was great, and they could have Julio for his entire career, and they did that. And for EJ and the Bills, I mean, we all lived that one. They gave up a future first to move up 5 spots, which is absurd. And they did it for a quarterback that they were hoping would prove to be worth it. And then EJ Manuel played all of 4 games with Sammy Watkins, and it was over. So I don't think it's the same when you're having a trade for a receiver when you know the guy slinging him the ball is going to put this guy in the best possible position on day one. So it's one of the reasons I think it actually is more worth it to move up. But I don't think it's move up or bust. I don't. I'm just ready to defend the Bills if they do it.
Jeremy, do you have a guy that they can't leave Detroit without? And I'll explain. My guy is Ladd McConkey, because if you can't go up and get a superstar that we know is projects very well for the NFL, like an Odunze and some of these other guys like a Thomas or somebody goes before the Bills are able to make a move, and you could be good with Ladd McConkey. I don't want them leaving Detroit without that player. Who's your guy?
Well, it's funny. Like I think if they could pick any person from the receiver group, I think they would come out with Odunze. That's I think might be like their number one guy. Mm-hmm. But if we're talking in the 28 range, my favorite idea at 28 is Xavier Legette. Legette is speed, yards after catch, size, power. He is an A.J. Brown-ish kind of receiver. The biggest knock on him, every one of these guys past the big three has knocks, but the biggest knock on him is that he only became awesome this past year. And to me, that's not really a red flag. Like, Ladd McConkey doesn't really have a lot of he was awesome. He didn't have huge production. He just looks like a really nice player. So I'm not upset about Ladd McConkey if that's it. I'm not upset about Xavier Worthy. I've been warming up to that idea. As people kind of break down just the number of ways he can be used and how traditional receiver roles are not what they once were. So, I mean, I would say Legette. Like, if it comes down to it and they are picking wide receiver 5 or waiting for wide receiver 13, I'm going to be upset, and I'm going to think about Legette as a guy they passed on.
Jeremy, I just keep on pointing out things just to caution. I'm almost like trying to counsel everybody if this doesn't go your way. Like your thoughts on the Bills' offense after that Denver Monday night game, because we all have talked about it. You've talked about it a ton, how there was this shift and how they had success with Diggs not really being the centerpiece. So if Diggs is out of the picture and you get somebody of, I don't know, your thoughts on what direction here this offense is headed based on how last year ended.
If they choose to look at those 8 games as their remedy, then we're all screwed. Because the 8 games, before that, there were 49 games of Stephon Diggs being pretty darn good. And Josh Allen threw more touchdowns to Stephon Diggs than any other quarterback to any other receiver. And they won 4 division titles. Like, to me, those 8 games, what really happened in those 8 games, the offense was responsible and the defense was much better. They only gave up a maximum of 22 points on that 6-game win streak down the stretch. But they still had to play close games. They did not blow out the Patriots. They did not blow out Easton Stick. And they beat Miami with a punt return touchdown. It's a big part of it. So the wins were nice. The offense, to me, I'll think about that Kansas City playoff loss forever because it's a good example of execution versus how you're built and how you can perform. There are plenty of people to say that they lost to the Chiefs in that game, and the offense was great, and Allen played great, and they held the ball, and they scored points. But what they really did was they operated all of those plays, all that whole game, without one single explosive play. And on 13 different 2nd and 4s, they ran it 10 times. 2nd and 4 or less. They ran 10 out of 13. And if they think that's the way to be the best version of themselves with Josh Allen, then they're wasting Josh Allen. I don't think that that's what they want. I sure hope that's not what they want. I can't allow myself to believe that's what they want. So if they took the lesson that we don't need a Diggs out of those 8 games, then I think they took the wrong lesson.
Jeremy, I want to make sure that we kind of cast a wide net while we have time with you and talk beyond wide receiver, because there are other needs on this team. We look at what's changing with the offensive line. We talked about defensive line, the pass rush, the edge rushers that the Bills are going to go into this offseason with. Certainly linebacker has to be a question when you have to look at the health of Matt Milano entering the season. And I know Gene over here is a big Cooper DeJean guy, so we can talk about the secondary as well. Which one of these areas do you think they address first? Do you think they address all of them at some point here through the next few days here over the course of the weekend at the draft? What's your take on every positional need outside of wide receiver?
I think that the defense gets a lot of attention, and as it should. I wouldn't be thinking about defensive back, at least not corner, in the first round in any circumstance, because right now they have 2 starting corners and a first rounder on the bench that they might want to reclaim in Kyer Elam. Maybe they can find their way forward with a new defensive coordinator and some new coaches. So a first-round corner immediately puts somebody on the bench, like is Benford sitting? He can play. He's fine. And blocks Elam. I think that's diminishing returns if you draft a corner in the first round. Second round even, I might include that as well. I bet they want to get younger at defensive end. So Chop Robinson's an idea. There was a little bit of time there. Laitu Latu out of UCLA might have been it, because of medical conditions that might have dropped him down the board. Now he looks like he might go top 10. But I'm interested in defensive ends and defensive tackles. You know, I'll eat my vegetables. I'll take the fun. I'll take the guys that I need to on the defense because I have a lot of faith in Sean McDermott in this department. You know, he gets criticized for the stuff he gets criticized for, but if they just stock him with second, third, fourth, fifth round picks for the rest of his career, I think he'd have a top 10 defense every year. He's really good. They're really good. It's part of their identity. So. Yeah, I mean, defensive end, defensive tackle, sure, linebacker, depending on Milano. Safety is a definite spot here, and being talked about that they don't really necessarily go for the most athletic safeties, but they maybe want smarter guys, and to me that projects third, fourth round. They're not going to be a team going for like the freak safety. They want the smart safety. So it all paves the way for receiver, and then pretty much do whatever you want.
Jeremy, last one, and it's regarding Lindy Ruff here, because yesterday, I'm feeling good, getting nostalgic, emotion, and Danger's pointing out some things to me, and oh my gosh, did they do the right thing here? I mean, it certainly seems like Kevin Adams cut a corner here in the search.
Yeah, I think they probably did do the right thing. The only difference for me between Lindy and a Craig Berube, and I know Craig Berube won a Stanley Cup and Lindy didn't, but Lindy, who's got the better resume? That's a good debate. The difference to me, Gallant, Boudreau, Ruff, let's say those are the 3 finalists. The only true difference is that I already have an opinion of Lindy and that I like him. I don't know Gallant. I don't know Boudreau. I saw Boudreau on the 24/7 series however long ago. But Lindy will definitely do some PR for them, but he's doing it as the 5th winningest coach in NHL history who's gotten 3 different teams to the playoffs. So, if this was bringing back somebody if this was bringing in Michael Pekka, to me, that's PR. He's never coached before, but people loved him. And that would have major concerns for me. Not to say Pekka won't be a good coach. He very well might be. But you want to say PR? I heard someone make the point, I thought it was a good one, that Lindy coming in is the toughest PR because they'll have people that doubt that they did it for the right reasons. And those doubts, I think, are legitimate. I just think that the resume is such that I'm not really worried about it. I'm fine with it. I say I'm fine with it, and then Lindy talked for 10 minutes, and I became thrilled with it, and I have to calm down because, it's nice to have him back. He holds court, and I think he makes people feel, well, I'll say, this is a one way to say it, no one will doubt for a single second how much this whole thing means to Lindy. It's not just a job for him. It's not just a job. And for Boudreau and Gallant or Berube looking to get back in the league, Berube probably wants to go back to Philly and might have told them no because of that. So a guy that wants to be here, that only matters to me if the person that wants to be here is good. And in this case, I think this person is good, so it works for me.
Jeremy, we did hear him say a piece yesterday about accountability. We heard that word a lot during locker cleanout. We heard it a lot during Kevin Adams' press conference when they let go of Don Granato. And what I loved about what Lindy said was that it starts with the player. Yet you have the player saying during locker cleanout, there's nobody holding us accountable. There's nobody holding, we need accountability. We need accountability. do you believe that this roster has the maturity to hold themselves accountable first and foremost before they hold each other accountable, before the coach has to hold them accountable?
I do. I think, maybe a different standard or different habits, different patterns. It was interesting to me that they had locker cleanout split over 2 days, and the group that went first had a lot about accountability, and almost sounded to me like they were fresh out of their meeting with Kevin Adams, and they were, parroting what he wanted them to say.
Sure.
And then day two, it was a little different. So you had players on that team that loved Granato and owe a lot of their money to his changes and things that he did for them. A lot of them made tens of millions of dollars. So I think they have a lot of respect for Don. And, you can do that in any line of work. Think like, thank you, this boss, for bringing me along. But someone to push me would be good for me. I think that's a normal thing in a lot of sports and, a lot of industries. So, yeah, I think Lindy is right for that reason. Maybe you wouldn't want Lindy coaching the youngest team in the league, but as soon as they wait 2 years and get a little older, even though they'll still be one of the youngest teams, I feel like this roster is more ready for that. Like a good example is when Bilesma was hired out of the tank years. That was the wrong coach at the wrong time. What if Granato got that team? Young, bring them along, keep them in the right mindset. He might have done better with those teams than Bilesma did, even though Bilesma is a Stanley Cup winning coach. So right coach in the right moment. I hope Lindy is, and I'm inclined to think he is.
All right, Jeremy, we'll be tuning in tomorrow, and I'm anxiously going to wait to hear you say, I've kind of changed my opinion here. Maybe the Bills should go defense here in the first round, get the best wide receiver in the second.
Let's just draft another tight end and say, think of him as a receiver. We'll just do that.
I was going to say that they invested a first-round pick in a pass catcher last year. Why would they do it 2 years in a row with a defensive-minded head coach? What are we talking about here?
2 years. It's 3 years in a row. James Cook was a running back. Think of him like a pass catcher.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Correct. Yeah.
We're not thinking of guys like things anymore. We're just going to do the thing you've been supposed to do for years.
Jeremy, it's great hearing your voice. Great catching up. Let's do it again soon, bud. Appreciate the time.
Anytime, guys.
Jeremy White, you can hear mornings on our Odyssey Sports sister station, WGR in Buffalo. Check it out in the free-to-download Odyssey app, AUDACY.
Yeah, where did he come down on the positional value? That's the thing. I can't, like, all these rumors about Brandon Beane, but he's never done it. And Jeremy said to their detriment, and the fact that this is a very deep class. So what is the value of trading up and giving up future assets for the Dunze when you can just kind of wait around and get your guy at 28?
Yeah, I get that. I think that if you did go up and get a guy like a Dunze, that you've got a player now with a quarterback, by the way, that can be what you had in Diggs and potentially more down the road. That's the kind of player I think he is. It eliminates, I mean, man, to hear Jeremy rattle off the Jake Kumros and the John Browns and the Cole Beasleys, and looking back, it's like, wow, they really didn't put any sort of value at all on that position. You bring in Steph Diggs, and that eats up so much of your quote-unquote positional value that you really don't have anything to put around him except for Gabe Davis, a guy that you got in the late round, right? So I can't wait, man. This is going to be a fun night. It's going to be so interesting to see how the board falls, if it falls the Bills' favor, and if they're able to do something remarkable tomorrow night.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm somebody who's looking at my phone. I know some people like to watch NFL Network or ESPN, ABC, or wherever it is, and let the TV kind of present it to you. But I need to know right now. I need the picks coming to me way beforehand.
Not me, pal. I will be when we're done at Three Heads tomorrow. We'll stick around a little bit after 6 o'clock, have a couple of pops, and chop it up with our regulars who decide to come out and see us tomorrow afternoon from 3 until 6 at Three Heads and on Atlantic Avenue. I will be eating my feelings with the TV on and a nice warm garbage plate on my TV tray. I'll be watching the remainder of the first round and waiting to see how it all falls for the Buffalo Bills late there in the first round. What are we saying here? Probably like 11:30, 11:20-ish, around there, probably by the time the Bills are picking, if they stay at 28. We'll get to happy hour next in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Lots to unpack there from our conversation with Jeremy White. We can go back and talk about Joe Yerdon, Bleacher Report. We can talk about who your guy is. Who's the guy that you have? I mean, we got We got Leggett. That's Jeremy's guy.
Yeah.
He wants Leggett. My guy is like, don't leave without McConkey. If you can't get Odunze, I get it. Too rich for your blood? Fine, but don't leave without McConkey. Who's your guy? We'd love to hear it at 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN.
W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
Playoffs begin for the Rochester Americans coming up Friday. It's game 1 against Syracuse. Michael Mersch agrees it's go time.
Like you just said, it's time to go. There's no more room for error. When I talk about commitment and not shying away from challenge, our staff does a really good job at putting us in situations and helping us recognize what we need to do.
The Hall of Famer Don Stevens has your call coming up Friday beginning at 7. Rochester Red Wings gave up 15 runs in a loss to St. Paul last night. Same two teams tonight in Minnesota. On the Major League scoreboard, Francisco Lindor, Brett Beatty both homering. Mets are up on the Giants 5-0. They're in the 5th. Baltimore on the West Coast. They're up on the Angels 1-0 in the 4th. One final from today, the Cardinals over Arizona 5-1. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
It's the NFL Draft first round.
Wait till you see my mock draft that drops. Let's just say that.
That's called a tease.
Yeah.
Hey, Reggie Bush got his Heisman back.
Oh, who cares?
Mike Danger.
We listeners are truly listening to a powerhouse sports show. Next, I'm going to do 20 minutes of fart jokes.
Gene Battaglia.
Listen, we can interview a Hall of Fame level agent. We can talk to a head coach. We can talk to an info guy. And Mike Danger can tell a fart joke and I can gossip.
That's right. We're going to do all of that.
My high school girlfriend came from Rochester, so I've always had a warm spot for it.
We're very provincial in this town.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Lindy.
Amerks Crunch, Friday at 7.
Playoffs?
Certainly expect it to be a sellout both games this weekend. Knowing now from the last 2 years the electricity and what this place does at playoff time is pretty special, and I'm excited for it.
Can we get a go Amerks, like go Bills?
I would like it to be safe as death. What do you mean? Don't look behind you.
The Amerks coming.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Is Rochester the Kevin Bacon of American cities? I think it is.
It is.
I think it is.
It is.
Happy hour in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia, glad you're with us. Thanks for listening locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950. You can hear us where we sound our best. The free-to-download Odyssey app or your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. We've even got the video stream humming for you. You can watch on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications at The Fan Rochester on YouTube. Twitch is also where we're streaming, twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger, that's Battaglia.
And I don't take it for granted that we get these opportunities to go out and hang out with people tomorrow. Three Heads Brewing, Neighborhood of the Arts. It's our tradition having a draft or two right before the draft. And also on Friday, we'll be out this year at the tap room at Bill Gray's Chili Avenue location. So the west side, we'll be in the city tomorrow. And so make plans for one or maybe both of the days to join us.
Looking at the weather, a little chilly, but the sun will be out tomorrow. It feels like the sun is going to be in full force. So maybe take a little advantage of Rochester's largest patio tomorrow there at Three Heads. You've got the Melon Head Watermelon Sour to try. You got all the other fine beers on tap. The local beers are on tap at Three Heads. And you can also grab a delicious wood-fired pizza from Freddy's while we're there tomorrow. And then, of course, we're going to have a great time Friday just dissecting everything from round one of the NFL Draft when we take the show on the road to the west side, as you mentioned, Gino. Chili Avenue, the tap room at Bill Gray's. We are there Friday from 3 until 6, as we like to say.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
Don't be shy. If you listen to the sports bar, we'd love to hang out with you.
Yeah, and Danger and I love to kind of hang out afterwards a little bit too. So it is going to be a fun afternoon and into the evening. And a lot of people have pointed out, and the Bills actually pick at 28. Last 3 years, that's happened in the 11 o'clock hour. This is not exactly a made-for-East Coast TV event tomorrow night, folks.
No. But you know what? We can certainly hang out and watch what goes on in the early rounds. And then, my plan is usually, on the way home, stop by, pick up a plate, eat my feelings. By the time the Bills are picking, I'm feeling pretty nice. Hopefully you have the same kind of experience here over the course of the next couple of days. I feel like, and Jeremy was right, Jeremy White, who joined us from WGR last hour, we feel like we've covered everything. This feels like the end of a political campaign. It feels like the Super Bowl of the offseason.
Yeah, to the point where we're getting reports out of New England that the Patriots haven't received any serious offers for 3, or the Giants might take Michael Penix for 6, or don't believe anything. Don't believe anything like right now. Like tomorrow night, what is proven on draft night? There will be things that will happen tomorrow night that absolutely no one predicted. Yes, Caleb Williams will go first. Probably Jalen Daniels will go second.
Hold on a second. If we're going to suspend belief for a second, does Caleb Williams need to go first overall? I mean, if you're Washington and you have Caleb Williams, quarterbacks coach from USC last year, as your new offensive coordinator, do you make a last-ditch effort? These are the things that we don't know. Like, we don't expect that it would happen, but we didn't expect that the Bills would trade Steph Diggs this offseason either, yet here we are.
That would feel unprecedented.
Yeah.
Like, normally the number 1 overall pick when it gets to this time, it's almost like a coronation. The little guy, Kyler Murray, okay, you're the number 1 overall pick. Trevor Lawrence. Like, in years where we don't have the quarterback, certainly that feels a lot different, that you're always open for business. Last year, it was Chicago actually making that same decision, Danger, way before the draft. That's why I would say, look, they made this decision last year, which ended up proving to be the right decision. If anybody thought Bryce Young, well, you're in a better spot for not having Bryce Young on your team.
For sure. And I don't know. I just I think about the years where there wasn't a consensus number 1 overall pick. Like, remember the year that Josh Allen was picked? Man, that was fun. That year it reminded me a lot of this year. Like, there's a lot of people that would say Drake May over Jaden Daniels. There's a lot of people that would say, not a lot of people saying Roma Dunze over Marvin Harrison Jr., but there's a lot of people that would look at the top 3 wide receivers and say that you could go with this guy over that guy or that guy over this guy, and there's depth. And nobody really knows. I mean, that year we didn't know Baker Mayfield was going to go number 1 overall until the day of? It was like the day of or the day before. Like, it sounds like Baker Mayfield's going to go 1. And we were sitting here saying Sam Darnold's the guy that the Bills need to get. That. And then if it wasn't going to be Darnold because he's going to go to the Jets, well, then maybe we get Rosen. Rosen's the right guy. Josh Rosen's the guy that we got to get. We were all convinced. There's a handful of people that were in on Josh Allen. A very, very small minority. We were not among those people.
No. Thank you for not putting the video of me on draft night.
I got to find it. It's somewhere. I got to find it. And I'm wearing the same hat. This is my unlucky Bears hat, by the way.
That's it.
Wearing it on draft week, on the same Bears hat I wore when they traded up to get Justin Fields, when they traded up to get Mitch Trubisky. For me, on a day where they're announcing their plans to build a new stadium, I'm hoping for brighter days.
I remember just being blinded by anger and then people putting their cell phones in my face with the white light. And there was the one guy, Spider. Do you remember that guy?
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, yam. And so the video, you couldn't see me. Like, it didn't work because all you hear is Spider yammering the whole time. But, I was pretty upset.
You and Masterstroke, both kind of dumbfounded. Masterstroke was there with us as well.
He was angry. Yeah.
He was very angry. He was just kind of like this look of like, oh, my God, we got it wrong. But him believing that we got it wrong actually proves that they got it right.
Well, be a man or a woman of your convictions. That's it doesn't matter what you say, Danger, or I say, or anything else. And if you think tomorrow your team got it wrong, that's the lesson here. You have to suspend your belief. And maybe you think your team got it right. Great. You can enjoy that wave before they're a damn rookie. You don't know.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how much money and time and people, the investment that goes into this, and they still haven't made these improvements to figure out which guys will pop and which guys will flame out.
It's it's become its own industry. I mean, draft prospects that lead to fantasy football. There's so many little tentacles and arms that reach out from the NFL draft, whether you're talking combine, Senior Bowl, of course, the actual draft, everything that leads up to them getting on the field. It's become like its own industry, and there's so many people covering the draft now, so many people that follow these prospects through the course of their college career up until the point where their name is called on that stage. And then, alongside that, so many NFL executives just lying through their teeth. The season of lying has hit its crescendo, and it will continue through the weekend.
At least you're lying and farting.
That's right, Belky. If I may, I mean, it is a take of the year nominee.
We're not there yet. We still got a couple of days going through. Coach and I haven't sat down and gone through the final board yet. We'll do that on Monday.
No, see, Dan added the last one.
That's fine. Yeah. The thing is, I mean, he didn't miss a beat. He just kept going. You know what? He was like Austin Matthews the other night, scoring on that breakaway. Catched it, dropped it, kept going, buried it. That's Trent Baalke, Take of the Year nominee. Lying through his teeth and letting one rip simultaneously without missing a beat. Very impressed. I just thought that today's smokescreen, the form that it came in this graph that Schefter put out, to me was the best. So good. So good that Schefter, a guy who normally isn't a stats or an info guy, he's a beat reporter.
Like that's the question. Like, whenever you have like a story on this, like,
he's an insider.
What's the agenda? Who's feeding him? Where is this coming from? It wasn't like Adam Schefter decided, you know what, let me put this out there. I'm doing the research myself. Somebody fed this to Schefter. Right?
Absolutely. Somebody fed it to him so that other people would see it, other fan bases would see it, and say to themselves, whoa, look at that. Why would you take a wide receiver in the first round? They don't hit. They never hit. They hit less frequently than any other position on the field.
So the data encompasses 20 drafts, 2000 to 2019. Now, full stop right there. Like, the rules were different for wide receivers back then.
Yeah.
Like, that's the flaw in this right now.
Well, I think the bigger flaw in this is what they consider to be a hit.
Oh, just read the comment section, because the hit rate for centers is at 92%. And, okay, of these 12 first-rounders, like, some of these guys didn't get to a second contract. Some of them were backups, and you're considering that a hit. I mean, it's almost like Schefter put this out. Somebody fed it to him, or Paul Hambo, I guess, fed it to him. Who put Paul Hambo up to this?
Yeah, this is meant to detract you from selecting a wide receiver in round one, because why would you? Look at, they don't hit. Well, what do you mean they don't hit? Oh, they don't sign a second deal with the team that drafted them? That's kind of a ridiculous metric. By that stretch, by that metric, Daniel Jones is a hit because he signed a second deal.
Correct.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, or Derek Carr was actually a second rounder. But quarterbacks they have is a 46% hit rate. No.
So smoke screens at this stage of the season of lying come in many different shapes and forms. Just be aware that pretty much anything you're consuming or crossing your feed here over the course of the next few days is going to be a lie. Straight up. Well, we can't wait for it to all get underway tomorrow night. And as we mentioned, we'll be celebrating with our pre-draft shows both tomorrow and Friday. The Sports Bar taking the show on the road. Three Heads Brewing tomorrow on Atlantic Avenue in the Neighborhood of the Arts. The Tap Room at Bill Gray's. Chili Avenue location Friday afternoon from 3 until 6.
The Cowboys making some news. They just picked up the fifth-year option on Micah Parsons. Like, why was this even a
no-brainer?
Debate? Yeah, why was this even a story?
That's a no-brainer. Speaking of extensions, the Lions had themselves a day with a couple of their star players and making them right now the highest paid at their respective positions. Amon-Ra St. Brown extends on a 4-year deal worth more than $120 million, $77 million guaranteed. That makes him right now the highest paid receiver in the NFL. Hey, good for him, because as soon as Justin Jefferson signs his deal, the market has been reset. And maybe you're waiting. Justin Jefferson has nothing to do but wait. They also today extended offensive tackle Penei Sewell on a 4-year, $112 million deal. That makes him the new highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL.
Which, Lion fans, you had a fun ride last year, and I don't have any reason to think that you won't be back in the playoffs this year. It really reminds me of how the Bills are kind of coming up where you had this collection of young talent on both sides of the ball, and now one by one you're going to have to pay these guys. So this is a little different, of course, because you have a veteran quarterback as opposed to Josh Allen, but this really reminds me of the Bills circa 2020, 2021, where, all right, we need to take care of Tre'Davious White. We need to take care of Deion Dawkins. You need to take care of the guys that actually you drafted, because that's the best way to spend money. To draft, hey, we got a hit. Here you go.
Another star player who had his fifth-year option picked up today was Cincinnati wide receiver Jamar Chase. Again, another no-brainer. He's set to make a projected $21.8 million guaranteed next season, the fifth season of his rookie contract. So the Bengals will have Chase again next year. T. Higgins still looks like he's headed to play this season on the franchise tag for Cincinnati. I was talking earlier today to one of my friends who's a Bengals fan, and he's a fan, but he's not even as immersed in the Bengals as we are, as people that cover.
Yeah.
And he's like, how are my Bengals going to do this year? And I'm like, you know what? The Bengals, to me, are fine because they have Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow's out there, they've got a chance. But the Bengals are fraudulent to me in that they give off this perception that they're this well-run organization all of a sudden because they have Joe Burrow and because they've won some games. They're still the same Bengals.
They have two big sticks of deodorant. They have Joe Burrow and they have Lou Anarumo.
Yeah.
If one of those two guys is not working to the way they should, they don't get to the postseason. See last year with Burrow going down. When some smart team actually hires Lou Anarumo, like in this day and age, you can't hire a defensive coordinator as a head coach. But like if Cincinnati ever lost him, which also too, like the cheap Bengals, like I would think he could go somewhere else.
Well, the idea that they're going to have really the only player in the league playing on the franchise tag this year should tell you all you need to know. They're not as well run as they may give off the impression. That's a move that no team should look to use, and the Bengals have no problem using it. Just saying, yeah, you're playing with us for another year under the franchise tag. Eat it up.
Yeah, talking to Lee Steinberg yesterday about what makes a good negotiation, and honestly, I asked the question, not having a clue what he was going to say. I wanted to learn. Listening.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure you're learning what the other side's objectives are. Like, what are their goals? Do you think for 1 second anything was like that in Cincinnati? Probably not. They're just looking at the number and that's it. Like for the Bengals, you have your core. Lock it up. What are you jerking around Higgins for?
Yeah. Well, he'll likely play for Cincinnati this year. I mean, who knows what kind of off-field dramatics we'll have as far as holdouts and maybe he pulls up lame. It wouldn't benefit him to pull up lame mid-season with a hamstring injury and miss an extended amount of time knowing that he's going to be a free agent. I mean, that only decreases his value in the free agency market. But we'll see with those Bengals. That's a team that we kind of forgot about as far as a team that could stand in the way of the Bills' quest to make it to the Super Bowl.
So will we have a story between now and tomorrow night? We had kind of a minor one last year where we had the tampering involving the Eagles and the Cardinals. Like, the one I remember was, like, I'll ask you this way. Does Aaron Rodgers speak in the next 24 hours? Like, I want to try, like, we're going to sit on this until draft night, you thirsty. Yeah. That's where I'm like, oh, my gosh, this guy is crazy.
He's decided to retire the night of the draft. I don't think we're going to get anything. I mean, from what I've seen, the NFL hasn't resolved what they're going to do as far as a punishment for tampering. The Falcons tampered.
Yes.
And they're going to be punished, but I don't think it's going to hurt them in this year's draft. It might hurt them in the future. There might be a fine. The NFL makes it up as they go, so we'll get the resolution when we get the resolution. But it's pretty clear that the Falcons did some tampering for Kirk Cousins, and they will get punished in some way, shape, or form. We just won't get a resolution on that this week, from the sounds of it. And then you can make the same argument about the Eagles and Saquon Barkley, as James Franklin seems to think that there was some tampering involved there, as Penn State's head coach was asked about it, but we'll see.
That one I'm not as sure about, but the Falcons won with the trainer and everything. The question is, all right, what kind of round pick do you take away here from Atlanta? Is that a third? Is that a fourth? I don't think you're not doing it first. They've only done it first twice.
It'll be, it'll probably be next year's draft that they get punished for it, unless, and again, the NFL kind of makes it up as they go. The rules kind of get made up as they go along, and maybe at some point this weekend we hear a story of the NFL docking one of these two teams for tampering, just out of the blue as they go along. We'll get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, as more NBA tonight here, as finally the winds a change here. We have a couple road teams doing some stuff here. What about Lindy Ruff and his staff? Seth Apper was asked about it. We'll tell you the response there about any possibility. If you could actually bet on the draft in New York State, like that would be a lot of fun, would it not? There's been some odd movement. Just kind of curious here, where telling you exactly what's going to happen here at the top of the draft. And some, I don't want to say finalists, but we have some candidates based on some trademarks filed today in Utah. What could be the new name of the NHL team?
I've got one circled. There's one that if they don't go with this, then they've missed the mark completely. But we'll get into that and more, along with your calls for last call before we close up shop at 6. 585-866-4FAN is our phone number. Pull up a stool. 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country and get the inside scoop from experts. AUDACY. Odyssey.
Odyssey, the owner of this radio station, is looking for a chief engineer to
update.
Tomorrow night, the NFL draft. Hoping you can join us at Three Heads Brewing. That'll be tomorrow in the Sports Bar. Friday night, it's the playoffs for the Rochester Americans as they will be taking on Syracuse. Head coach Seth Appert on the Crunch.
The way we scout is we show our players threats and opportunities. We show them what are the threats. What does Syracuse do really well that's threatening to us? And then what are our opportunities? What do we think we can exploit? And that's kind of the way we attack a pre-scout.
Don Stevens will have the call tomorrow night beginning at 7. Make that Friday night here on the Sports Leader. Rochester Red Wings gave up 15 and lost to St. Paul last night. Same two teams tonight in Minnesota. On the Major League scoreboard, the Orioles are up on the Angels 2-0 in the 6th. Mets up on the Giants 6-0 in the 6th. The Cardinals defeat the Diamondbacks 5-1. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader. The Fan, Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. One Bills Live in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Weekday afternoons on The Fan, Rochester.
Man, we were spoiled with Monday night's action. I mean, last night was fun, nowhere near as fun as Monday night. And, well, we've got action tonight in the Stanley Cup playoffs. 3 games happening tonight. And we can't forget about a couple of games that we have tonight in the NBA as well. Time for other shots.
Yeah, the NHL games you have tonight. You've got the Florida.
Nope.
No, that's not tonight.
Nope, that was last night. You have tonight. You have the Bruins traveling to Toronto.
That's right. Okay.
You have the Knights in Dallas, and you have the Kings game 2 against Edmonton with the Oilers. The Oilers. The Knights looking to extend their series to 2-0 leads, and Toronto looking to take a 2-1 series lead in that best of 7.
Yeah, that's. I was jumping ahead to tomorrow night thinking, wow, it's actually smart in the NHL to kind of power down a little bit tomorrow night, just going with the 2 games up against the NFL draft. Tonight you got a couple teams on extra rest tonight in the NBA. Boston goes for it, game 2 tonight. They haven't played since Sunday. Miami down 1-0. Another play-in winner, New Orleans. The Pelicans playing against Oklahoma City. OKC up 1-0. If you missed it from last night, Minnesota now up 2-0 on Phoenix. The Pacers evening their series with the Bucks. Of course, Milwaukee without Antetokounmpo. And the Mavs and Clippers tied at 1. So, we finally in the NBA had a couple road teams winning.
Yeah, I enjoy that. I kind of think that the Bucks are frauds, and that when it's all said and done, the Pacers win that series. You're not going to win that series if you're letting Pascal Siakam drop 35+ on you. It's just not happening. Like that series is going to frustrate a lot of Bucks fans. And this Pelicans-Oklahoma City series, if OKC wins again tonight, and I expect that they will, go ahead and stick a fork in the Pelicans. They're not coming back from 2-0.
So Lindy Ruff introduced yesterday, and the question put out there, all right, well, how's he filling out his staff? Lance Isowski put in the question to Seth Appert today about, well, would you be interested in joining his staff? Quote, realistically, it's not something I put any thought into. I love my job. Which, like you and I have been saying all along, kind of hard to imagine that Seth Appert.
Well, and that's also the right answer. Even if he does have designs on that, the right answer right now as you're heading into the postseason is I'm not thinking about that. I'm only thinking about what I'm doing here, which I love.
Prior to yesterday's press conference, Ruff meeting a couple hours with the holdover coaches, along with Don Granato, by the way, dismissed were assistant coach Jason Christie and video coordinator Matt Smith. How do they fill that spot for Christie? What about former head coach of the Rochester Americans, Chris Taylor? He worked on Lindy Ruff's staff in New Jersey.
Interesting. I wonder what Taylor would do with that. And we talked to Joe Yerdon earlier, and the way it ended with Tails and this organization wasn't great. It really wasn't. I mean, we were kind of outraged by it. I can't imagine how he felt.
Yeah, I thought it was you were throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I understand that maybe you have a new GM, but I didn't think there was any reason for Kevin Adams to actually kind of make that move. Now,
the team was gutted that day.
We were gutted. Everything, like the fan base was gutted. Like, how could you actually do this? This is a organization, the Amerks, that were on the upswing. Here's why I would think would do it is that Tails, with his family, I don't think he's picking up and moving for the next opportunity for the West Coast or wherever. It would make sense for him I don't want to say swallow pride because I don't know that to be the case, but
hold on a second. Do you mean to say that people will actually take or stay in a job because they have commitments to this area, to this region, to this city? Are you serious? Really? People do that?
The curious thing is, Danger, when your little one leaves Mercy and spreads her wings, what's going to happen to you, buddy?
Oh, you think that's the linchpin that's going to make result in change? Did you forget that my wife's family is here, that they're very, very healthy and vibrant for their age and living their best life right now?
Well, I didn't know when I was going to tell you this, okay? And I figured this is probably the time here. And I figured share it with everybody. So tonight we get our little trial run for us being as empty nesters. Our son is out of town on a school trip. Our daughter is at college. Like, wow, this is what life is going to be like next year. And I'm here to tell you, Danger, that it will be the same next year and the year after that and the year after that. I married the Rochester girl. Yeah. I am not going anywhere.
Yeah, there are no changes.
No.
You can expect to be consistent. That's what you can expect. Consistency is key, my friend.
Imagine if we could bet on the NFL draft in New York State, how fun that would be. If you're curious, we had odds move as far as who's going to go second in the draft to Washington. In fact, they moved dramatically. Jaden Daniels went from minus 440 to minus 125 to go number 2 overall. Drake May now minus 160 to go New England at 3, I should say. Maybe I'm thinking that they'll trade down to the Giants. Last time we had the quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3. Did not go well.
Just to stop, did Daniels go from minus 125 to minus 440?
I think that I had that backwards.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep. So Daniels is now more of a heavy favorite than before.
Correct. Okay. Well, I mean, I can't bet on it anyways, but that is a significant move, and it feels like that will be the guy that goes to Washington. Drake May to New England at 3 is curious to me.
I think New England gets the heck out of there, and maybe they get somebody else later on, and they're picking to fill in another need. New England's the team you got to pay attention to, because if they pick the wrong quarterback, they're doing this again 3 years. See the Jets, how they're just kind of treading water. But if they get it right, all right, that would be certainly interesting. Hey, Reggie Bush got his Heisman back today. The Heisman Trust announcing the formal reinstatement for what it calls enormous changes in the college football landscape.
It's so
stupid. The Heisman Trust decision comes after Bush forfeiting his Heisman in 2010 in the wake of NCAA sanctions, which included Bush receiving improper benefits from 2003 to 2005.
Oh, who cares?
Yeah, in the world that we live in now, when you look back then and see what Bush got penalized for, it's like, yeah, we really don't have any reason to punish this guy any further, because everything he did then was actually revolutionary. And it's all that they're doing now. So here, have your trophy back. Sorry, our bad. We were just trying to be, the NCAA. We're just trying to flex.
Yeah, well, this is the Heisman Committee. We're
very important people.
So my
very.
What do you call it, Mount Pius?
Yeah, from high atop Mount Pius, we will bestow your Heisman Trophy back upon you, Reginald Bush, and we will forgive you for all past misgivings.
So we don't know what the new Utah hockey franchise is actually going to be called. By new hot franchise, it's the Arizona one that's moving to Utah, but they don't have a nickname. But you can also follow the paperwork here. There have been trademarks that have been filed. In fact, there have been 9 of them.
How many?
9.
9 times.
Danger, tell me if any of these float your boat. The Utah Blizzard, the Utah Venom, Utah Fury, Utah HC, Utah Hockey Club, Utah Yetis, Utah Outlaws, Utah Mammoth, and the Utah Ice.
I'm not going to lie. Some of these names sound like they would be best suited as men's league nicknames, right? Which one do you think I like the best?
I think you like the Yetis the best.
Love the Yetis.
Yep.
I'm all in on the Yetis. If they go with the Yetis, and much like the Kraken, there's brand synergy that you can immediately apply. Day one, they'll make money with the company that makes coolers or whatever. And the logo could be badass. It could be a lot of fun. You're in the mountains. It just makes sense. Yetis is the one for me.
If you were going to go kind of like, all right, let's keep a little bit here of the franchise history, wouldn't Utah Venom, you come up with like a nice little snake or something like that, or would that be just too confusing and people would think Arizona automatically?
I don't know what. No, I don't like that. I really don't. I don't like. I'm a fan of. Maybe I'm traditionalist, but I like the nicknames that end with an S.
We can cross Utah Mammoth off there too, because I think a Colorado Mammoth from the
Who was
lacrosse.
that? Yeah, lacrosse.
Yeah, lacrosse. Yeah, no, you're Utah. You're not Colorado.
Right. Utah Ice. Get out of here.
Now, if there was a team in Indianapolis, didn't they have one? I think they did in the IHL, the Indianapolis Ice, Indiana Ice.
Love alliteration.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I think I like, even though Yeti starts with a Y, I kind of like Utah Yetis. I think that flows.
But the nickname that does not end in S, like none of them work for you. Like, hey, you don't even think about the Sox, but the Red Sox.
Yeah. It's not that they don't work for me. Well, Red Sox, it only doesn't end in an X because you misspell it. You end it with an X instead of an S.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Lightning, I've grown to like. I'm okay with lightning. I'm okay with Kraken.
Thunder.
Ugh.
Heat.
Ugh.
Magic.
Yuck.
What else am I missing here? Wild. That's the dumb name, the Minnesota Wild.
Bad.
Yeah.
Just bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in on Yetis. If they go with Yetis, I'll be good with that. I'm fine with that one. There's a run of shots. All right, last call and one last segment before we close up shop. Tomorrow, we take the show on the road for the next 2 days. We'll be at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue tomorrow starting at 3 for day 1 of the NFL Draft. And then Friday, starting at 3, we'll be in Chilai, the Chilai Avenue location of the Tap Room, Bill Gray's, from 3 until 6. We invite you out to both live shows. Always love when our regulars stop out and say hi during our live shows. And man, Three Heads has become a tradition, and we're starting new traditions on day 2 of the NFL Draft with our friends with the Tap Room at Bill Gray's in Chilai. We're going to do that Thursday and Friday, but before we can do that, we got to get the last call at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening.
Can I play the highlight of the season of lying one more time? Our take of the year nominee. Please, just...
We're not there yet. We still got a couple of days going through. Coach and I haven't sat down and gone through the final board yet. We'll do that on Monday.
We'll never get tired of hearing Trent Baalke rip one in the middle of a press conference and completely own it and not miss a beat.
Not miss a beat. He knows it's coming. I can't hold it back. And yeah.
Is that a tell that he's lying? If you have some stomach issues, it's a tell, right? Oh, we know you're lying because you just let one rip in the middle of your press conference.
No, it tells me he's comfortable. He's eating well. Like he's not worried about this draft, Danger.
No, I guess not.
No, like things are good in Jacksonville right now.
I guess not.
He doesn't have to worry about Herb or anything like that. He's got a head coach he can manage. Ooh, this is interesting.
Tell me.
Trey Hendrickson, Cincinnati Bengals.
I saw this.
Requesting a trade from the Bengals.
And T. Higgins. We knew T. Higgins wanted out. Didn't like the franchise tag.
Ooh, who would you rather have? Like, to me, Trey Hendrickson. You know, never would go. That's why for the same Higgins things, like they're going to trade him to Buffalo. But, hey, you're any other team, especially one that plays in the NFC. Are you picking up the phone call of the Bengals right now?
I think so. But again, this is why I think the Bengals are this kind of like fraudulent team. They've got a really good quarterback, and their defensive coordinator knows his stuff. But they're still the same Bengals. They're still cheap. They still mismanage their talent. I mean, the no-brainer today, yeah, of course you're going to extend Jamar Chase, but it doesn't change that you have T. Higgins requesting a trade and wanting out because you don't want to play on the franchise tag. So the Bengals continue to Bengal. That's the way they've always operated. That's how they've always been.
So there's one thing that Buffalo does well. Maybe it was 26 shirts coming up with kind of grassroots thing. You know, the Diggs Allen thing. You're into Dunze, right?
That's my guy.
They're making T-shirts instead of hey, a Dunze. Hey.
Yeah. Yes.
It fits.
Yeah, that works. See some branding opportunities already. Well done. Who's that? Dell that put that together?
I don't think it's Dell.
No. I'm conflicted, Gino. I really am. Because look, you listen to the show, you know, in my heart, I'm a Bears guy. I'm a Chicago guy. My Chicago sports teams always will have my heart first and foremost. But we spend so much time talking about the Bills. I'm immersed in it. You're immersed in it. You know, I don't know that we could say we're fans, but we're fans. Like, we want to see them do well. We know what it means for our community when they do well. And I want a Dunze. I don't care what team gets them. I want one of these two teams to get a Dunze. If it's the Bears, if it's the Bills, I'm going to be happy tomorrow night. One of those two teams. Anybody else, I'm going to be disappointed. It's got to be one of those two teams. Has to be.
Yeah. There's so many receivers in this draft. If you have your heart set on one, the Bills, whoever they take in round one or round two, I'm going to say that. I will meet Jeremy White halfway. There's no way we get to Saturday and be like, oh my God, they haven't taken a receiver yet. I cannot believe they went corner and offensive line.
Yeah.
No, they're going to take a receiver here in the first two rounds. They're going to take somebody good. It's that deep. So I'm not planting my flag for McConkey or a Dunze or whoever it may be, because the fan base is going to love whoever they draft. It's guaranteed.
If you missed Jeremy White from Jeremy White's show on WGR, if you missed Joe Yurden from Bleacher Report and Noted Hockey, our two conversations with those two gentlemen are posted up live now wherever you get your podcasts. You can just search out The Sports Bar. And that includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all your favorite platforms, including the free-to-download Odyssey app, as well as our entire show. We'll get that up and posted for you here shortly. You can go back and listen to anything that you may have missed in the free Odyssey app as well. With Rewind, that'll let you go back and listen to anything for the next 72 hours. Fun show this afternoon as we wrap it up, and tomorrow's it. One more show to go before we get to the NFL Draft Round 1 tomorrow night. We will be celebrating the occasion at Three Heads Brewing, Rochester's largest patio. It's now open for the season. It's going to be sunny tomorrow. Nice day to enjoy the Melon Head Watermelon Sour or some of the other fine beers that they have on tap there at Three Heads. Good local beer, fresh local beer. Grab a delicious wood-fired pizza from Freddy's as well if you're going to stop out and see us tomorrow afternoon. We're live from 3 until 6 in the neighborhood of the arts. We made it, Gino. The draft is here tomorrow. And then, of course, we'll be able to react to everything from tomorrow night on Friday in Chile at the tap room at Bill Gray's. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan.